Chapter 741, Flamingo Blood Beads. It's really too hard to get someone to join our team. Damn, looks like I can only wait until the end. Hi, there's nothing we can do about it. Our team is the weakest out of all of us. Those cultivators who were pulling people to the right of the round table dejectedly ran back. Seeing that there was an additional true spirit level cultivators in the group, they were all pleasantly surprised. However, their judgment was not wrong at all. After the other teams had finished selecting their members, a pale yellow-clothed man who was as thin as a stick walked over with a group of peak heavenly domain cultivators that no one wanted. Tang Huan knew that this yellow-clothed man was the party leader, Li Tenan. Judging from the chi undulations, he should be a rank 5 true spirit cultivator, but seeing his sickly look, it was very likely that he was still injured and had not fully recovered. Although Tang Huan was somewhat curious, he did not ask further. After all, it was the first time they had met. Thinking about it, when he was still on the left side of the round platform, Li Tenan had already noticed the situation on the other side. The 50 squads had been rearranged neatly and were fully filled. Combined with the clan guardians' manual and the introductions of Hu Kai and the others, Tang Huan had a good understanding of the situation in the clan guardian group. 50 teams would rank themselves according to the amount of contribution. Each time they successfully completed a mission, they would receive a certain amount of contribution points. Generally speaking, the larger the contribution a team had, the stronger the strength, and such a team would often be assigned some very good missions. As for the lower-ranked teams, they would often receive difficult and tiring missions, and the contribution points from completing the missions would also be relatively low. For example, the team that Tang Huan was on currently only had around 30,000 contribution points. Among all the teams, it was the lowest, and the team that was ranked first actually had 3 million contribution points. The difference between the two was 100 times. As for the strength of the two teams, there was a world of difference. Squad 50 on Tang Huan's side only had 3 true spirit cultivators, but Team 1, Tang Huan had secretly observed just now that the 20 members of the party were all true spirit cultivator. It was very likely that the leader of the party was a rank 6 true spirit cultivator. Even if compared to Luo Hao, who had fought with Tang Huan before, they would not be much weaker. Amongst the 5 great geniuses who were participating in the clan guardians' general election, Luo Chen and Gu Jiang were both recruited. Very good. Since you've chosen your teammates, next is the allocation of missions. Across from the group of 50, Hu Zhao said with a solemn expression and a voice that was as loud as a bell, there have been quite a few missions accumulated during this period of time. After receiving your mission, please carry it out as you wish, and do not delay it for too long. Yes, sir. Everyone answered loudly. Hu Zhao slightly nodded. His gaze turned towards the first group as he yelled out. A stack of papers appeared out of nowhere in his hands. Here, a man with an abnormally robust physique replied. He was like an ancient fierce beast that had just broken free from its cage, and his imposing manner was extremely intimidating, causing people to feel fear at first glance. Kai. With a flick of Hu Zhao's finger, a piece of paper flew towards Hu Ben like an arrow that had just left the bow. With a grab, the page appeared in his hand. Hu Ben quickly took a look at it, then waved his hand and laughed out loud. Brothers and sisters, let's go. Let's all go back to our respective residences and make preparations. We will gather at Wind God Valley's entrance after an hour. Moments later, 20 figures jumped down from the round table. Mo Lan, Hu Zhao shouted loudly once again. Here. Amidst the crisp voice, another figure flew out from the crowd. She was the captain of the second squad. She was extremely tall and wore an extremely loose black robe. For some reason, she wore a mask on her face. Hu Juan and Hu Ken had joined this team. But what surprised Tang Huan was that the leader of this team was actually a woman, Hua Jingting. Here. Wei Jing. The pages were sent out by Hu Zhao one by one, and the team that received the mission either left or stayed behind to discuss things in a low voice. Not long after, the number of people on Peng Shao's round table decreased by almost half, and most of them gathered together. Li Tenan. Here. Very quickly, Li Tanan also received the page that Hu Zhao popped out. After giving out all the team missions, Hu Zhao did not stay any longer. He turned and faced the huge hall behind the round altar, and after just looking at the page, he started laughing bitterly, with an expression of as expected. "Captain, what is our mission this time?" The crowd gathered around, and Hu Kai could not help but ask. "See for yourself." Li Tanan helplessly gave the paper back to Hu Kai. 100 flamingo blood beads. After he recited these few notes, Hu Kai's face immediately collapsed, as if he wanted to cry but had no tears. Even Chen Yu couldn't help but pat her forehead, her pretty face showing signs of depression. Everyone's expression is the same. "Is there something wrong with this flamingo blood beads?" Tang Huan asked doubtfully. Right after he said that, the surrounding team members' gazes landed on Tang Huan, with strange expressions on their faces. Chen Yu smiled a little embarrassedly, and quickly explained, "My brother has been focused on cultivating since he was 6. And he was almost isolated from the world. He only started to interact with the outside world recently, so that's how it is." Everyone immediately understood, so Hu Kai also nodded his head, but his smile was uglier than crying. "Brother Chen Huan, you might not know, but this flamingo blood beads is a type of thing that exists in the body of Wind Bell Flamingo. It was a type of flying beast. Its strength was not considered strong, only at the peak of heavenly domain, but if one wanted to obtain a flamingo blood beads, he or she had to capture Wind Bell Flamingo alive. They had to be alive. If this kind of vicious beast died, then the bead of blood condensed in the crown of the head would also dissipate. For a single Wind Bell Flamingo with only one blood bead, you would need to capture 100 flamingo blood beads alive. Even if it is 2 or 3 months, it would not necessarily be a success. "I see." Tang Huan finally knew why Li Tanan and Hu Kai had such a lifeless look on their faces. In a situation where one did not have the ability to fly, catching flying beasts was indeed not an easy task. One had to lure them down from the skies or touch their nests. No matter what method, it was impossible to catch too many Wind Bell Flamingo at once. TSK, 100 flamingo blood beads. Your luck is pretty good." A mocking laughter suddenly rang out. "If I remember correctly, this seems to be the 3rd time Squad 50 has received this mission, right? In my opinion, you don't need to take any more missions in the future, just focus on collecting flamingo blood beads for Tiger Clan." Chapter 742, Lei Bao. Everyone looked towards the source of the voice and saw a group of people approaching. The one in the front was actually Lu Yi, the person who wanted to recruit Tang Huan previously. His eyes flashed with ridicule. Almost immediately after he finished speaking, the cultivators beside him began to wantonly roar with laughter. Seeing them, Hu Kai and the rest had ugly expressions on their faces. "Ha ha, you're right." Another voice sounded. "The flamingo blood beads is an essential part in the refining of the large success treasure star palette. It has always been lacking in the Tiger Clan." Li Tanan, "Hu Chi, I suggest that we should carefully consider Brother Lu Yi's suggestion of collecting the flamingo blood beads, although it will be a bit hard, but it will be safe and there won't be any danger. If we were to carry out other missions, with your current strength, you guys might not be able to make a complete loss, so it doesn't matter if we lose face for the clan guardians. When the time comes we still have to implicate our Lord Commander." The one who spoke was a man in his 30s. He was dressed in green, had a medium build, a sallow complexion, and a fierce-looking face. When he spoke, he looked serious, but his eyes were full of ridicule. That's right. What Captain said makes too much sense. If it were me, I would have gone to ask the Lord Commander to agree to this proposal. Having accumulated so much experience to gather flamingo blood beads, it would be a waste for me not to persevere on. Do your job well. From now on, all of our Maharat treasure star pellets will fall to you. FCK your mother. Zhengqi, with that little cultivation of yours, you still have the nerve to mock others. How ridiculous. I wonder which team nearly died in the mission. The cultivators beside the green-robed man agreed and mocked and ridiculed him. Squad 50, Hu Chi, Tongj and the others all looked angry as they ridiculed him one after another. The area instantly became extremely noisy, immediately attracting the gazes of everyone around. The cultivators who had just joined the two squads obviously didn't think that their relationship would be so bad. They looked at each other in dismay for a moment, then uncontrollably joined the battle of words as well. Tang Huan secretly sized up Lu Yi. His brows knitted slightly. He had a premonition that Lu Yi's group of people might have come not just to ridicule everyone, but also for some other reason. However, Li Tanan squinted his eyes, and his expression became more and more gloomy. "All right." His gaze swept across the green-robed man and Lu Yi, and a trace of anger could be seen between his brows. "Pu Han, Lu Yi, if you two are truly bored to death, I can accompany you two to have a good spar here. But if you don't have the guts, then get the hell out of here right now." "Exchange pointers?" The green-robed man called Pu Han was stunned. He looked at Li Tanan with a hint of embarrassment, anger and fear, but then suddenly laughed and laughed sinisterly. "Li Tanan, do you think that this is still a year ago? With your current appearance, even if I win against you, it will still be an unfair victory. As for Hu Kei, even if I don't say I'm not interested, Brother Lu Yi isn't interested in playing around with him at all." Saying this, Pu Han curled his lips in disdain. "This team of yours only has 2 true spirit cultivators in total. Now, one of them is sickly and the other one is a defeated opponent of Brother Lu Yi." In these words, Pu Han actually misunderstood Li Tanan's intentions. Li Tanan's original intention had been to spar with him and Lu Yi, but it had been exchanged for a spar between 2 small teams. Hearing that he did not even put Team 50, Li Tanan and Hu Kei, the 2 vice-captains, in his eyes, Luo Xingkong and the rest were all filled with anger. But, without waiting for them to retaliate, Lu Yi suddenly opened his mouth and laughed. "Brother Pu Han, you forgot? Team 50 has just recruited a fellow with rank 2 true spirit." When his eyes swept across Tang Huan, a sinister look actually surfaced in his eyes. Hearing that, Tang Huan's eyebrows twitched. He suddenly realized that Pu Han and Lu Yi might have come for him. The previous taunts he made were just a prelude. Regardless of what Li Tanan said, they would definitely take care of him. Looks like rejecting Lu Yi's recruitment earlier had indeed made him hate himself. Chen Yu was obviously aware of this as well. Her 2 charming eyebrows were tightly knitted, and a look of worry quietly appeared in the depths of her bright and black eyes. Regarding the sparring between the clan guardians, as long as no one died and they did not drag each other down while they were doing their tasks, the Tiger clan would not interfere. "Ah, I really forgot about that." Pu Han clapped his hands lightly, and with a face of enlightenment, he said with a cold smile, "Li Tanan, didn't you say you wanted to spar? However, we will not bully you. Since the guy in your team is a rank 2 true spirit cultivator, then our team will also produce a member that is a rank 2 true spirit cultivator." After saying that, without waiting for Li Tanan's response, Pu Han fiercely roared out, "Lei Bao, you go." "Yes, sir." The thunderous reply suddenly sounded, and a tall and sturdy young man walked out with large strides. His 3-meter-tall body made him look like a moving mountain of flesh, and the moment his feet stepped down, thumping noises could be heard. Even this enormous round platform seemed to tremble. Upon seeing this person, the expressions of Luo Xingkong, Tongj and the others immediately changed, and even the expressions of Li Tanan and Hu Kai changed greatly. They all understood this fellow called Lei Bao quite well. Among all the clan guardians, Lei Bao's cultivation level was not considered high, but his strength had far surpassed their level. In almost a year, he had challenged many cultivators of the rank 3 true spirit, and up till now, he had never lost. Tang Huan was merely a rank 2 true spirit cultivator. How could he be a match for Lei Bao? Compared to them, Chen Yu had actually calmed down. Although Lei Bao looked extremely terrifying, she believed more in his strength. Back when she had just broken through the rank 1 true spirit realm, Tang Huan had already killed Tai Zonqian, who had defeated Luo Tong, who had also used the rank 3 true spirit. Now that Tang Huan had already stepped into the rank 2 true spirit, his strength would definitely far surpass that of the past. and it wouldn't be difficult for him to defeat Lei Bao. "Brat, come out." After a few steps, Lei Bao stopped. He was like a hungry and bloodthirsty beast licking his lips, and then crooked his finger at Tang Huan, his face fierce. Chapter 743 I don't have time to play with you. Chen Huan, ignore him. The corner of Tang Huan's mouth lifted slightly. Just as he was about to move, Li Tanan had already walked forward with large strides to stand in front of Lei Bao, but his eyes were staring at Pu Han, and as he sneered, "You two have a good plan. If you really want to spar, then I will accompany you." Not long ago, Hu Kai had quietly mentioned to him about the process of Tang Huan joining the party. When Pu Han, Lu Yi and the others first came over, he did not think too much about it, but when Lu Yi mentioned Tang Huan, he immediately understood his intention. Although Lu Yi's cultivation was high, but he was always vengeful, and had been humiliated while recruiting for Tang Huan, and was not to be let go. Since Lu Yi was a cultivator of the rank 4 True Spirit, it was naturally embarrassing for him to fight against it himself. Hence, he sent Lei Bao out to fight. If they were to really fight, Lei Bao would definitely not fight in an orderly manner, and would instead go all out, and heavily injure Tang Huan. Since they could see through Pu Ying and Lu Yi's plans, how could Li Tanan let them succeed? Pu Han did not reply Li Tanan. Instead, he looked at Tang Huan in the blink of an eye and mocked, "Chen Huan, do you really plan to act like a coward and hide behind your team leader?" Lu Yi smiled as he looked at Tang Huan, and said, "After all, this is a specially recruited clan guardians. It definitely cannot be compared on the same level as us clan guardians who have only joined the Tiger clan after passing the general elections. All of us have been through hundreds of battles, so we are naturally not afraid of any challenges. Clan guardians who are specially recruited have never been tested like this, so it is normal for us to be a little bit timid." Yes, if you don't even dare to accept the challenge from a cultivation realm opponent, then what kind of clan guardians are you? You should go home and give birth to a child as soon as possible. Tiger clan should have their spot cancelled. Recruiting this kind of cowardly fellow, simply ruining our clan guardians' reputation. The crowd around Pu Han and Pu Han echoed his words, laughing without restraint. Team 50's cultivators all had gloomy expressions. Pu Han and Lu Yi had truly played a beautiful hand. Even if they were clear about their goal, it was impossible for clan guardians with a little blood to pretend that they didn't hear it. In Wind God Valley, even if they knew that they would suffer a crushing defeat when facing a challenge, they could not avoid battle. It was precisely because of this that Pu Han and Lu Yi were fearless. For a moment, Hu Qi, Luo Xingkong and the others scolded Pu Han and Lu Yi for being despicable and shameless, and their eyes were filled with unconcealable worry. Li Tanan also frowned, somewhat hesitating. This time, if Tang Huan really avoided the fight, even if it was because he blocked it, it would be very difficult for him to raise his head up from now on in the Wind God Valley. The surrounding team members also started to watch with interest as one after another gazes fell on Tang Huan, as if they wanted to see what choice he would make. If he accepted the challenge, not only would Tang Huan have a slim chance of winning, he would also be severely injured by Lei Bao. Of course, if Tang Huan avoided battles wholeheartedly, it was true that no one would be able to force him. However, with his status as a clan guardians, he would be easily criticized by others, and if this happened again, he would be pointed at by others in the future. Whoosh! Under the crowd's gazes, Tang Huan's footsteps suddenly moved. He appeared by Li Tanan's side. 2 pairs of eyes looked at Pu Han and with a smile that was not a smile, he said, "It took so much effort for you to forget it. I will just play with this guy, as you wish." "Chen Huan, you." Li Tanan was rather hesitant, but before he could finish, he was cut off by Tang Huan smiling. "Captain, there's no need to worry, it's just a clown. I'll first send him off, then we can discuss the mission properly." Huh? Lu Yi and the others, as well as the surrounding cultivators, were all stunned for a moment. This clan guardians of the rank 2 True Spirit was actually so arrogant. Lei Bao was strong, and had already surpassed normal rank 3 True Spirit cultivators, but to think that such an expert was seen as a clown? Chen Huan, you dare to underestimate me. Tang Huan's words were so angry that even his nose was smoking. Right now he was like a lion who had been thoroughly enraged, staring at Tang Huan with its two large eyes, as if he wanted to punch him to death. Underestimating? I'm just stating a fact. The corner of Tang Huan's mouth curled up slightly. With a light smile, he walked forward step by step. Lei Bao, hurry up and make your move. You. Lei Bao's face suddenly changed. Lei Bao, don't be angry. Since he is so impatient, you should properly entertain him. Lu Yi's cold laughter came out. Yes, sir. Lei Bao came to his senses and took a deep breath, then laughed sinisterly. Chen Huan, my hospitality will definitely be something you will never forget for the rest of your life. Just as the sound of his voice faded, Lei Bao roared. He leaped forward and directly smashed his palm towards Tang Huan. Lightning snakes coiled around his fingers, strength chi whistled, and a berserk chi engulfed the area. Even if it was a mountain peak, it would still be smashed apart by that palm. You're thinking the same thing as me. Tang Huan slightly raised his brows, and his body was like a flowing light as he explosively shot forward. Li Tanen's lips slightly moved, as if she wanted to say something. But before she could speak, she was pulled by Hukai. Looking at Tang Huan's figure that was as fast as lightning, Hukai was suddenly filled with anticipation. At first, he, like Li Tanen and the others, were also shocked by Tang Huan. But very quickly, when he thought about how Tang Huan had entered the middle section of Spiritual Soul Cave and stayed there for a period of time, a different thought flashed through his mind. After a moment, Tang Huan had already raised his right fist, and like a cannonball, he welcomed Lei Bao's huge palm with a wild roar. The strength chi was hidden, but Tang Huan's fist seemed to contain a terrifying and hot energy that was surging inside it, to the point that the skin of his right hand was a deep red, as though what was thrown out was not a fist, but an active volcano that could erupt with endless power at any time. Lie down. Lei Bao let out a heaven-shaking explosive roar, and his widened eyes contained unconcealable contempt and disdain. Almost in the next instant, his palm smacked down on that fist. Tang Huan's eyes flashed with ridicule, and the power within the fist immediately erupted. Bam! A deafening explosion suddenly sounded out, and even the entire space seemed to tremble violently. The instant the fist and palm collided, a wave that could be seen with the naked eye spread out rapidly. The strength chi surged crazily, and seemed to set off a violent storm. Chapter 744, Three Fist. Lei Bao could not help but let out a stifled groan as his face greatly changed. The immense power gushed out from his fist caused his entire arm to instantly become numb, and it bounced up high without his control. The terrifying heat contained within that power also made him feel as if his palm was about to melt. How could this bastard's genuine chi be so tyrannical? Lei Bao didn't dare believe it, but before he could even react, he heard an extremely ear-piercing whistling sound. Yet another bright red fist rushed over from the front with a speed that reached the extreme, leaving him no time to block or dodge. Ooh! Lei Bao clenched his teeth and roared loudly. The Danshan was pushed to its limits, and many electric snakes as thick as a thumb roared out from his body. They crisscrossed in front of him and quickly condensed, turning into a thick purple barrier that flickered with light. An instant later, Tang Huan's fist had already imprinted itself onto the purple barrier. Bam! In the midst of the loud noise, a terrifying power exploded out crazily like a collapsing dam, as though it was destroying everything in its way. In the blink of an eye, the purple wall was completely torn apart, and Tang Huan's fist struck ruthlessly at Lei Bao's abdomen. Ghost Gate, http://1_1219/. Lei Bao's face contorted and his eyes bulged. Like a giant shrimp, his huge body was bounced up into the air as an indescribable pain spread out instantly, causing him to feel as if his intestines were shattered into countless pieces. But, before he could even catch his breath, Tang Huan had risen into the air. Another fist struck his abdomen, and Lei Bao didn't even have the time to let out a groan this time. His body that had just used up all of its momentum rose several tens of meters before plummeting down from the skies like a meteor. He actually didn't struggle at all. Plop! In the blink of an eye, The sound of a heavy object landing on the ground resounded through the air. The moment the voice disappeared, the round table fell into a deathly silence. Looking at Lei Bao, who was lying on the ground like a dead dog, everyone was dumbstruck, unable to believe their own eyes. Lei Bao, who had already defeated a lot of rank 3 true spirit experts, was actually killed by a rank 2 true spirit guy in just 3 punches. This clan guardians that was specially recruited was actually this powerful? Well done. After a while, a burst of laughter suddenly broke the tranquility of the place, and it was actually Li Tanan who gave a tight slap. Her pale face had a surprised smile plastered across it. Hu Kai, who had been awakened, could not help but grin. This time, he really picked up a treasure. Although Lei Bao did not use a weapon, the Chen Huan also did not use a weapon. Under the situation where he was unarmed, if he could knock Lei Bao out with 3 punches, with a weapon in hand, wouldn't Chen Huan be even more powerful? Squad 50, Luo Xingkong, Tong Zhi and the others were not only shocked, but also grinning from ear to ear. Compared to them, Chen Yu was a little surprised. She never thought that Tang Huan would lose, but she never thought that the battle would end so quickly. He actually lost just like that. The reason why they let Lei Bao and Tang Huan spar was because they had complete confidence in Lei Bao. However, the final result caused the two of them to be splashed with cold water, and made them so stifled that they wanted to vomit blood. The rest of the members around the two and the surrounding clan guardians were all completely shocked. It was one thing for Lei Bao to lose, but he lost so quickly, and from start to finish, it only took 2 or 3 breaths of time. Where did this kid come from? With only a cultivation of rank 2 true spirit, you are already so powerful? Chen Huan, heavy. In our western region of Firing Dragon Mountain Range, you have such a surname. If I remember correctly, there seems to be a Chen village. Lei Bao has lost a lot of face this time. He actually lost in such a pathetic manner. Whispers could be heard from time to time, either guessing at Tang Huan's origins, or curious about his strength, or sympathizing with his encounters. He really is a clown. Everyone had different expressions, but Tang Huan merely glanced at Pu Han and Lu Yi, and turned to leave. Halt! Lu Yi suddenly shouted out as he gnashed his teeth. What is it? You want to spar with me personally? Tang Huan turned his head to look, and seemed to laugh indifferently. Facing this rank 4 true spirit ranker, his expression did not contain the slightest bit of fear. Lu Yi's face was unsettled. Of course it would be inconvenient for him to personally go down and teach Tang Huan a lesson. With his strength, even if he won against Tang Huan of the rank 2 true spirit, there was nothing to be proud of. However, if he lost to Tang Huan or only fought to a draw, then in the future, he would not have the face to meet anyone in the Wind God Valley. But how could he be willing to let Tang Huan go like this? Originally, he wanted Lei Bao to give him a deep lesson, to the point where he jumped out of his chest. However, he didn't expect that Lei Bao would actually become the stepping stone for his opponent's fame. After this battle, forget about the other clan guardians. Even clan guardian commander Hu Zhao himself had probably looked up to him. Haha, Captain Li. Congratulations. Just when Lu Yi was at a loss for words, Pu Han opened his mouth and said with a dark face and a fake smile, your team actually found such a powerful expert. Today's time is very urgent, so we will not delay any longer. Once we complete our mission, we will come back to seek advice at any time. Li Tanan snorted. Let's go. Pu Han swept Tang Huan with 2 ice-cold eyes, waved his hand, and turned around. Lu Yi also coldly swept a glance at Tang Huan, signaling 2 members to lift Lei Bao up, and quickly left as well. As soon as they left, Tang Huan was actually surrounded by Hu Kai and the others, and started to laugh merrily. This kid is quite interesting. On the 2nd floor of the Great Hall about 100 meters away from the round table, Hu Zhao stood in front of the window, narrowed his eyes and muttered softly. Not long after, the round table with Peng Shuo completely disappeared and was completely silent. At the entrance of the Wind God Valley, the clan guardian group left in a wave. After approximately an hour, Hu Qi, Tang Huan, Chen Yu, Luo Xingkong and the others all arrived at the entrance of the valley one after another. each of them carrying a small bag and their usual weapons. Even Tang Hua took the opportunity to summon his conqueror's spear when he returned to his courtyard. Li Tanan was the last to appear. Other than his weapon and bag, he was also carrying a black wooden chest that was about 1 foot long and wide. The material of the box seemed to have surpassed the absolute spirit tree that Tang Huan was familiar with, and not a single trace of aura was leaking out. Reportedly, it contained something to lure the Windbell Flamingo. After a while, under Li Tanan's orders, Squad 50 left the city south. Chapter 745, Red Glow Fire Crystal. It was late in the evening, and the setting sun was as red as blood. In the midst of the lush forest concealed 20 figures, which were Tang Huan, Li Tanan, Hu Kai and the rest. It took them 5 whole days to get here. The Windbell Flamingo should be moving soon, Li Tanan instructed softly as he stared at the huge pit in front of him that was 1,000 meters away. The hole was bright red and extremely deep. It seemed to be filled with heat as it continued to rise. The area within 10 meters of the hole was completely barren. Ding ding, ding ding. Not long after that, a loud sound came out from the hole. It sounded like a jade plate that had fallen from the sky. "He's here." Everyone's spirits were lifted as they held their breath. Moments later, a red figure flew out from the hole. It was a huge, fiery red bird with a slender neck and a large, sturdy body. There was not a single trace of other colors on its body. On top of its head was a fist-sized, round crown of flesh, inside which were the blood droplets that were to be collected during the mission. After capturing Windbell Flamingo alive, you can cut open the crown of flesh and obtain the drop of blood. After the wound healed, in another 5 or 6 years, new blood droplets would appear. Not long later, several hundred Windbell Flamingo appeared high in the sky. Ding ding. With a clear bird cry, 3 fiery red figures suddenly dove down from the summit where Tang Huan and the rest were. At this moment, there were several pebbles scattered across the empty space between the trees. Each of them was a captivating red like fire and as big as a fist. Inside the stone, there seemed to be clouds floating about and a scorching aura was constantly seeping out. They were red glow fire crystal, a type of crystal grown in an extremely hot place. They had a fatal attraction to Windbell Flamingo. Every time they executed a mission like this, they would need to prepare dozens of red glow fire crystal, and in the end, there were less than 10 left. Ho! The 3 Windbell Flamingos were extremely fast, and in an instant, they were only 100 meters away from the peak. Everyone was focused and did not dare to make the slightest sound. They had to take action the moment the red glow fire crystal was swallowed by the Windbell Flamingo. If eaten, the red glow fire crystal would quickly melt. Even if he killed the flamingos, it would be impossible to take it out. Ding ding. But just when everyone was waiting for the Windbell Flamingo to tear open the branches above the red glow fire crystal and throw themselves into the forest, the 3 fiery red figures suddenly changed their direction and shot into the sky, leaving behind a string of extremely clear cries, causing everyone to stare at each other in the forest. Li Tanan did not say anything, but signaled everyone to stay calm, and then continued to lurk around. Ding ding, ding ding. After the time of about 10 breaths, the clear and melodious shout came closer. There were also fiery red figures approaching, and one of them was actually 10 Windbell Flamingo. However, the scene from before replayed itself very quickly. Those Windbell Flamingo also flew past the peak of the mountain at a high speed, about 100 meters away from it, and soon after, reached 1,000 meters in the air. It would have been fine if it was only 1 or 2 times, but not long after, this kind of scene occurred more than a dozen times. The descending Windbell Flamingo, or 2, or even dozens of them, were actually able to resist the enticement of red glow fire crystal. Wo Xingkong, Tong Jin and the other old members were still able to maintain their composure, while some of the new members of Team 50 were unable to keep their cool. And after this kind of situation had occurred dozens of times in a row, even Li Tanan and Hu Kai began to worry. Tang Huan and Chen Yu couldn't help but look at each other. On the way here, they had heard Li Tanan and the others repeatedly say that the Windbell Flamingo was extremely intelligent and vigilant. Ding ding. At least 100 Windbell Flamingo came rushing down, as they flapped their huge wings. As the strong wind blew past, the sky was filled with fallen leaves, and all the trees on the mountain were falling in the same direction. The red glow fire crystal on the ground was also blown away. One of the members at the peak of Heavenly Domain could not help but exclaim softly when he saw this. Subconsciously, he rushed out from his hiding spot, soared into the air, and grabbed those red glow fire crystal one by one. Almost at the same time, the 100-over Windbell Flamingo drew an arc in the air as they rapidly climbed. The moment the member fell to the ground, he seemed to have realized something and stood there, stunned. "I've been exposed." Hukai punched the ground and jumped up gloomily. Li Tanan and the rest also came out from their hiding spots. It was also at this moment that almost all the Windbell Flamingo flew over. They were happily playing and crying in the air with deafening sounds at 1,000 meters high in the sky. Everyone's faces darkened. They were actually mocked by the group of vicious beasts. "Yes, I'm sorry." The team member drooped his head, feeling incomparably guilty. "No need to blame yourself. You can't be blamed for this." Li Tanan smiled bitterly and waved his hand, consoling them. "Even if you didn't intervene, I would have done so later. If not, these red glow fire crystal would have been eaten for nothing by the Windbell Flamingo very soon. I never thought that these fellows would be so vigilant and smart." Even though he said that, there was a trace of regret in his eyes. Hearing that, Tang Huan could not help but say, "Captain, they should have already discovered that there is a trap down there." "Oh?" Li Tanan was startled. Tang Huan muttered to himself. When Ban Lei appeared to collect the red glow fire crystal, the group of Windbell Flamingo above did not panic at all. "It is likely that they already knew that someone was hiding here." "After hearing what you said, it's true." Li Tanan frowned. "About 10 years ago, a small team once came to this place to collect flamingo blood beads. It seems that they still remember it." Lifting his head to look at the Windbell Flamingo that was circling in the sky, Li Tanan said somewhat helplessly, "Everyone, we need to change locations." "You want to go to Dragon's Valley?" Hukai hesitated. "We can only go there." Li Tanan sighed. "The Windbell Flamingo in other places have all had their blood collected, so I am afraid it will be difficult for us to obtain them again. Even if we are able to succeed a few times, without a year of time, it would be very difficult to complete this mission." Everyone was helpless. There were only 2 locations where blood droplets had not been collected. The first place was the Wolong Valley that Li Tanan and Hukai had spoken of, and it would take at least 20 days to reach the Wolong Valley from there. There was another place where even a month of travel might not be enough. The most important thing was that these 2 flamingos' nests were deeper inside the Firing Dragon mountain range, and were both extremely dangerous. "Captain, we're not at that stage yet." Tang Huan's eyes flickered, then suddenly said, "I do have a method that might be able to help us gather enough flamingo blood beads here." Chapter 746, One Pot. Whoosh! After a moment, a figure suddenly flew through the lush leaves and branches of the mountain peak and into the sky. This man was Tang Huan. The wings formed from energy flapped frantically in accordance to a strange pattern. The speed had already reached an extremely inconceivable level. So fast. At the top of the mountain, Li Tanan, Hukai and the rest all jumped onto the tree as they cried out in alarm. Although she knew that Tang Huan had the ability to fly, she never thought that Tang Huan's speed would be able to reach such a level. In the blink of an eye, Tang Huan was already less than 100 meters away from the group of Windbell Flamingo. Ding ding, ding ding. Those flamingos knew that the cultivators below did not have the ability to fly, which was why they fearlessly circled the sky. But they did not expect such an unexpected turn of events. After staring blankly for a while, they suddenly woke up. They all screamed as they fell into chaos. "Ho!" But just when they were about to flee all over the place, Tang Huan had already rushed into the group of cranes with lightning speed. A wave of exceptionally terrifying pressure pervaded in all directions and actually condensed into a substance, and in an instant, covered a radius of several hundred meters, including all the flamingos. After stepping into the true spirit level, the spirit pellet had become the true spirit, and the heavenly domain had transformed into an invisible pressure, causing the pressure to become even stronger. In an instant, The entire space seemed to have frozen. The strongest of the several hundred wind bell flamingo was only at the peak of the heavenly domain. They simply could not withstand the pressure that came sweeping in from all directions. In the next moment, every flamingos seemed to have a giant boulder pressing down on their back, as their bodies couldn't help but sink down towards the peak. Tang Huan's wings slightly contracted, as he too floated downwards. Ding ding. The sharp bird cries resounded in the sky, and the hundreds of flamingos were all terrified. They flapped their wings with all their might, and even tried to activate the heavenly domain, hoping to escape the restraints of the pressure, but to no avail. They could only watch as they got closer and closer to the summit. Standing on the branches, Li Tanan and the others were all dumbstruck. The group of heavenly domain cultivators in particular were so shocked that their eyeballs almost popped out of their sockets. At the beginning, they had thought that Tang Huan had flown high up in the sky and captured wind bell flamingo one by one. So this was how it could be played. The coercion released by brother Tang Huan is actually this powerful? Li Tanan was amazed. Previously, when he had used red glow fire crystal to lure the flamingos, it was not as if he had not thought of such a method, but on one hand, he was worried that if he captured a few flamingos, they would scare the rest away, and on the other hand, those flamingos were too far away from the ground, and were also a little high above it. He was not completely sure, but maybe when he released his pressure to its limits, those flamingos had already escaped the area of effect of the pressure. Not only is it strong enough, its speed is also fast enough. The range is huge enough. Hu Kai was also extremely shocked. He secretly compared Tang Huan's performance with the might he could unleash and realized that no matter what, he was inferior. At this moment, he even felt that if he were to spar with Tang Huan, he was 90% the one who lost, as expected of a fellow who could enter the middle section of the spiritual soul cave to cultivate right now. Pa. After a short moment, an ear-piercing explosion sounded and more than a dozen wind bell flamingo had already descended onto the mountain peak at the same time, breaking many tree branches. "Hurry up!" Li Tanan shouted, and with a movement of his figure, he appeared beside a wind bell flamingo. The fierce beast could no longer resist and immediately had its head grabbed by Li Tanan. His finger was like a blade, slashing across the red crown, and then, with a light squeeze, a red bead appeared in his hand. It was about the size of a walnut, it was round and shiny like a gem. Putting the blood droplets into the cloth bag tied to his waist, Li Tanan rushed towards another flamingos without stopping in his steps. Hu Kai and the rest also started to act as if they had just woken up from a dream. In just a few breaths of time, all of the several hundred flamingos had landed on the mountain peak with Tang Huan following closely behind. He did not make a move, but instead stood quietly, controlling the terrifying pressure that enveloped all the flamingos within, preventing it from disturbing Chen Yu and the other heavenly domain cultivator. Using this kind of method to collect flamingo blood beads, Tang Huan was also somewhat forced to do so. If he could use a red glow fire crystal to lure enough wind bell flamingo with a relatively fast speed, Tang Huan did not plan to show off like this. Unfortunately, Li Tanan's plan failed. This was what Tang Huan didn't want to see the most. Although he had joined the Tiger Clan, he didn't want to be restricted by the Tiger Clan for too long, and if he wanted to become a guardian within 2 or 3 years, he needed to squeeze out as much time as possible to cultivate. If he were to quickly complete the mission like this and return to the Wind Howling City earlier, he would not need to carry out the mission for at least 2 months and would be able to train as much as he wanted. Of course, this was also because the matter of being able to condense wings was already known to Yuan Kun. Otherwise, Tang Huan probably would not have made his decision so quickly. Whoosh, whiz, ding ding. The sound of clothes tearing through the air and the cries of flamingos rose and fell at the same time. Li Tanan, Hu Kai and the other 19 people moved and jumped at the peak, continuously collecting the beads of blood. Brother Tang Huan, you can let them all go. Not long after, Hu Kai's carefree voice resonated outwards. Tang Huan smiled slightly. In an instant, The true spirit had already calmed down inside the Danshan. The terrifying pressure covering the area within a few hundred meters instantly vanished without a trace. The group of flamingos felt as if their bodies had lightened, and they immediately fled into the sky while screaming in pain. Although they knew that their lives were not in danger, they did not dare to stop. Before long, hundreds of figures had drilled into the huge hole. At the peak of the mountain, Li Tanan and the other 19 people had already gathered around Tang Huan. Haha, cool. This is effing great. In the past, catching a flamingos was already extremely difficult. But now, in just that little bit of time, I have collected 30 flamingo blood beads. This is all thanks to Brother Tang Huan. Li Tanan also squinted his eyes, his face full of smiles. This time, we've collected a few hundred flamingo blood beads. We guarantee that we'll be able to scare those fellows in Wind God Valley so much that their eyeballs will fall out. Brother Tang Huan is truly amazing. With so many flamingo blood beads, to be able to obtain such a large amount of contribution, our team's ranking will definitely increase by quite a bit. Wo Xingkong, Tongj and the others were also beaming with joy. Chapter 747, Excess Reward. Congratulations everyone. 5 days later, in the early morning, a middle-aged man with a friendly face was looking at the 20 clan guardians in front of him with a smile. He said in a satisfied voice, "The mission of your group 36 has been completed very well." The middle-aged man was called Hu Yu, clan guardian's manager, and he specialized in various tasks-related matters. "Alright, thank you manager." A sturdy man cupped his hands and smiled at Hu Yu, and then waved his hand. "Brothers, let's go. Go back and have a good rest." Gone. This mission is relatively easy. It'll be completed in 10 days. Just as the 20 people were about to leave the main hall, they all stopped in their tracks with expressions of uncontrollable astonishment on their faces. At this moment, on the stone path that was tens of meters away from the main hall's entrance, 20 figures were rushing over at lightning speed. Li Tanan, the short, stocky man muttered, "Strange, why would they be back so soon?" The people who suddenly appeared were members of Squad 50, Li Tanan, Tang Huan and another 20. In the blink of an eye, they were already at the entrance of the palace. The short guy rolled his eyes, he could not help but let out a laugh, and joked, "Captain Li, for you to return to Wind God Valley so quickly, is it because you failed your mission? If you are willing to transfer 20,000 to 30,000 contribution points, our team would be happy to help." "Captain Kaiyu Fu, thank you for your good intentions, but there's no need." Li Tanan raised his eyebrows, laughed, and strode into the palace, passing by the short and stout man, Manager Hu Yu. "Turn in the mission." After he finished speaking, the black wooden chest in his hand landed on the stone table in front of Hu Yu with a bang. "Submit a quest." "Am I hearing things?" the short sturdy man named Kaiyu Fu gasped, and then scratched his ears, thinking that he had misheard. What kind of joke is this? It's only been 10 days and they've already completed that mission? If I remember correctly, their mission is to collect 100 flamingo blood beads. It would take 10 days to travel from the Wind Howling City to the nearest flamingos' lair. In the past, they would need a few months to collect 100 flamingo blood beads, but this time, they do not need to use it for a day. The other members of Squad 36 were also in disbelief. As the grumbling sounds of the surroundings entered their ears, the faces of Hukai, Luo Xingkong, Tongj and the others tensed up. They did not make a sound, but the pride between their brows could not be hidden no matter how hard they tried. Seeing their expressions, the sturdy man Kaiyu Fu and the rest were even more confused. "Your mission has been completed?" Hu Yu was also shocked. "Manager, you can tell at a glance." Li Tanan laughed and pointed to the wooden box. Hu Yu was skeptical, but with a clatter, he opened the lid of the wooden chest. At the bottom of the box were a few red glowfire crystal and a large cloth bag. After just a brief count, Hu Yu had discovered that the red glowfire crystal Li Tanan had received from this place 10 days ago was not the least bit lacking. Suppressing the shock in his chest, Hu Yu opened the cloth bag and poured out the contents inside. Sparkling, jade-like, blood-red beads poured out one after another, covering all of the red glow fire crystal at the bottom of the box in an instant. Hiss! Regardless of whether it was Hu Yu, Kai Fu or the others, they were all shocked, speechless. Gasps sounded one after another, and the number of flamingo blood beads in the box was at least 400 to 500. Ever since Tiger Clan first refined the Mighty Star Restoration, the mission to collect the flamingo blood beads had been announced 10 times, with only 150 of them being collected the most. At other times, when he had obtained enough blood droplets, he would quickly return to the Tiger Clan. After all, this mission wasted too much time and energy. But this time, the amount of blood droplets collected by Squad 50 was 3 times the maximum. Where did these fellows get so many flamingo blood beads? What was even more outrageous was that Team 50 didn't spend much time collecting the 400 to 500 flamingo blood beads. They didn't even spend a day collecting them. Or could it be that they found a new flamingo's lair closer to him? This did not seem possible. If there was a new group of cranes near the wind-howling city, it would have been discovered long ago. Sensing Hu Yu and the rest's expressions, everyone in Squad 50 laughed, as if they had just drunk nectar, and felt all 36,000 pores on their bodies expand, from head to toe. All the previously oppressive and stifling atmosphere seemed to have been swept away. Seeing Hu Kai and the others being so cocky, Tang Huan could not help but laugh. Manager Hu Yu, please count. Li Tanan lightly coughed, and reminded her. Oh, as if he had awoken from a dream, Hu Yu hurriedly suppressed the shock in his heart and quickly began to count. Not long later, Hu Yu couldn't help but exclaim, 488 flamingo blood beads. 488? Kai Fu's heart twitched, although he had expected it, but when he heard the figure coming out from Hu Yu's mouth, he still couldn't help but exclaim out loud, Brother Li, Big Brother Hu, Tiger, how did you do it? This was close to 500 blood droplets, not to mention their group 36. Even if they were to send out their entire true spirit level experts as #1 team, they would probably need more than a month to collect so many blood droplets. Guess, Hu Kai laughed. Guess your mother. Hearing Hu Kai's words, Kai Fu's face turned black. He could not help but curse at the bottom of his heart, but Hu Kai obviously did not want to reveal it, so he could only call for help. However, Li Tanan didn't pay attention to Kai Fu. Instead, he asked Hu Yu, Manager Hu Yu, how many contribution points did our team receive this time? Hu Kai, Luo Xingkong and the rest all looked at Hu Yu. Tang Huan was also quite looking forward to it. As far as he knew, the amount of contribution points awarded for such missions was not constant. Just like collecting flamingo blood beads and completing the collection of 100 blood droplets, one could earn 20,000 contribution points. This number appeared to be twice the reward for the mission of Squad 36. However, if there was a choice, any team would be willing to execute the mission of Squad 36 and not collect the flamingo blood beads. After all, the latter would take too long, and the gains wouldn't make up for the losses. However, if he could exceed the limit and complete the mission, he would also receive a similar excess reward. Hu Yu let out a long sigh, and the smile on his face seemed to be about to spill out. Completing the collection of 100 flamingo blood beads will give me 20,000 contribution points. He had collected 200 blood beads, and his reward was doubled, so he could earn another 40,000 contribution points. After collecting 300 blood beads, the reward is doubled and you'll get another 80,000 contribution points. Wait and see. If you collect 400 blood beads, you can earn another 160,000 contribution points. If you collect 500 blood beads, you can earn another 320,000 contribution points. Although your team still lacks 12 blood droplets to reach 500, this difference can be completely ignored. I believe that no one will object. Chapter 748, Tiger Crouching. A total of 620,000? Kai Fu quickly added it and couldn't help but scream out. The members of Squad 36 beside him were also dumbfounded, their eyeballs bulging out of their sockets. Hu Kai, Luo Xingkong and the others, after being stunned for a moment, were wild with joy. They were so excited that their faces were flushed red, and even their breathing had become a little hurried. Even the pale face of Lee Tannen, the captain of Squad 50, had a faint flush to his face. So many contributions. Was also secretly surprised. For a small team that could finish a quest extremely quickly, Tiger Clan would always reward them generously, but for a quest that originally only had a mere 20,000 rewards, the rewards contribution points suddenly increased to 620,000. This was indeed very scary. Manager Huyu, if we collect a few hundred more blood droplets, wouldn't we receive a few million in rewards? Tang Huan could not help but ask. For all the missions, 1 million reward is the cap. Huyu laughed. A million is not bad. Hu Kai laughed until his entire face became a big bun. He rubbed his hands and said, Manager Yu, if we go and collect more flamingo blood beads, can we get a reward? Hearing his words, the eyes of Tang Huan, Li Tannen and the rest lit up, many of them wanting to move. Kai Fu and the others also pricked up their ears, staring straight at Huyu. If the reward of 1 million was sealed to the top, 600 flamingo blood beads would be enough for it to be collected at a time. If Hu Kai could complete this idea, he could go through all the known flamingos' lairs and at least obtain tens of millions of contribution points. However, on second thought, it seemed unlikely. He could not keep the flamingo blood beads for too long. If he could not keep up with the refining speed of the Grand Star palette, it would be a waste to collect too many blood droplets. You think too much. Sure enough, Huyu rolled his eyes at Hu Kai in annoyance. The flamingo blood beads does not compare to medicinal herbs or gems. Even if there is no mission for these two things, once you find them and hand them in, you will be rewarded. What a pity. Tang Huan, Li Tannen and the others all felt extremely regretful. If he had known earlier, he would have gone to the flamingos' lair and collected more blood droplets. That way, he would have received the highest amount of 1 million contribution points, but it was too late now. When Kai Fu and the others heard this, they secretly heaved a sigh of relief. Squad 50 obtaining over 600,000 contribution points in one go was enough to make them so jealous that their eyeballs turned red. If they were to use this method to obtain over 10 million contribution points, then they wouldn't be able to let the other squads live. Oh, they can make it to 16th place. Moments later, a cry of surprise attracted everyone's attention, and soon after, everyone's gazes landed on the white monument inside the hall. On the body of the tablet, it was carved with the Clan Guardian Group S of the Clan Guardian Group. Currently, Squad 1 was ranked at the top of the leaderboard with 3 million contribution points, while Squad 50 was ranked at the bottom with over 30,000 contribution points. But if we add in the current 620,000 contribution points, he would immediately climb to the 16th place of the contribution list S with over 650,000 contribution points. Under normal circumstances, if there was a change in the number of members or contributions to a party, Huyu would update the list once every 5 days. As for the amount of contribution points each team would contribute, they would be counted again by the end of the year. Haha. We don't need to be at the bottom anymore. Right now we are ranked 16. Even if all the teams return after completing their missions, we will definitely be in the top 20. Let's see who dares to look down on us from now on. Many members of Squad 50 were beaming with joy and feeling extremely excited. Seeing that, Huyu also laughed, and then said, "Everyone, congratulations on obtaining so many contribution points in one go. Based on the current amount of contribution points you have, your party can go to the Tiger Crouching to collect 120 initial Spirit Heavenly Crystal to choose a cultivation technique or battle skill book from the first floor of the Tiger Might Hall. According to the rules of the Tiger Clan, every 100,000 contribution points Clan Guardian Group received 20 initial Spirit Heavenly Crystal S, and every 500,000, they could choose a cultivation technique or technique. Take it." Following that, Huyu took out 2 3-finger-wide jade plates from beneath the stone table and handed them over to Li Tannen. The jade plates were sparkling and translucent, showing a golden luster. However, The characters interweaved with patterns were different. One of the words was tiger while the other two words were Tigermite. It perfectly matched what Hu Yu had said about tiger crouching and Tigermite Hall. "Thank you, manager." Li Tanan accepted the jade tablet, and after thanking Hu Yu, he laughed out loud. "Go, let's go to tiger crouching." After a while, a group of people excitedly left the hall. Watching the group of 50 get further and further away, Caillou Fu and the others were so envious that their saliva almost started to drool. Counting the new contributions that they had just received, their 36 squads only had a total of 130,000 contribution points. They were still quite far from receiving the next initial Spirit Heavenly Crystal, and even more so, far from entering the 500,000 contribution points that they needed to enter the first level of the Tigermite Hall. Damn it, what kind of luck did these fellows have? They actually managed to get their hands on nearly 500 blood beads at one go. Caillou Fu racked his brains, but still couldn't figure it out. The tiger crouching, on the mountainside north of the Tiger Vigor Summit, was an extremely large palace hall. It occupied a vast area of several hundred meters, and other than an exceptionally majestic main hall, there were also over a dozen side halls. In front of the main hall, there was a huge tiger statue that was dozens of meters tall. This tiger crouching had gathered the majority of cultivation resources from the Tiger clan, and there were people coming and going every day. After approximately an hour, when Tang Huan, Li Tanan, Hu Qi, Chen Yu and the other 20 people walked out from one of the side halls, almost all of them had joyous expressions on their faces. At this time, a wooden box appeared in everyone's hands. Each box held 120 initial Spirit Heavenly Crystals. "Brother Chen Huan, thank you." Li Tanan felt the weight on his palm, and said with emotion, "If not for you, our team would have worked so hard to obtain only 20,000 contribution points. Maybe by the end of the year, we would only be able to gather 100,000 contribution points, and would have gotten 20 Spirit Cloud Heavenly Crystals." Hu Ke, Luo Xingkong and the others also nodded repeatedly with faces full of gratitude. The reason why this mission could be completed so quickly and beyond expectations was indeed all thanks to Tang Huan. "We are all friends. Let's not talk about courtesies. Everyone, let's hurry to the Tigermite Hall," Tang Huan said with a smile. Li Tanan, Hu Kai and the rest were all very satisfied with the initial Spirit Heavenly Crystal that they received this time, but Tang Huan did not take it to heart. What he was really interested in were the techniques and techniques of the Tiger clan. As for the initial Spirit Heavenly Crystal apostrophe, he still had close to 10,000 of them hidden within his space aircraft. In this period of time, Tang Huan had not tried using initial Spirit Heavenly Crystals to cultivate, but looking at how Li Tanan and the others viewed them like they were treasures, he reckoned that they were pretty good. Yes, to the Tigermite Hall. Tang Huan? Chapter 749. Statue chiming. The distance between Tigermite Hall and him wasn't too far, only around 1,000 meters. However, the situation between the two was vastly different. The tiger crouching was bustling with noise, but the Tigermite Hall was completely silent. The pavilion was 3 stories high, and the building was huge. It quietly stood in a small valley, surrounded by huge trees. It was quiet and elegant, serene and solemn. Separated by a distance of a few hundred meters, Tang Huan and the others, who were previously laughing, could not help but quiet down. The further they went, the more solemn the atmosphere became. Everyone was silent as they quickly arrived in front of the pavilion. The door opened, and no one guarded the entrance, as if anyone could freely enter or leave the building. However, Tang Huan understood in his heart that the Tigermite Hall was the most important place in the Tiger clan's inheritance ability, and not just anyone could casually enter it. In and out, this place must have Tiger clan warriors guarding it. Indeed, after following behind Li Tanan and Hu Ke, the moment he crossed the threshold of the pavilion, Tang Huan saw a rather skinny figure. It was a white-robed old man with a head full of white hair. He sat cross-legged about 3 to 4 meters from the door. There was a low table in front of him, which seemed to be carved out of white jade. The thin old man looked unremarkable, but the aura that faintly seeped out from his body caused one's heart to palpitate. It gave people a feeling of strength that was as majestic as a mountain and as vast as the ocean. At this moment, although the old man's eyes were closed, the moment they entered Tiger Might Hall, everyone felt a strange feeling of being stared at. However, on the way here, Li Tanan, Hukai and the other old members who had been in the Tiger Might Hall before had all warned them about this. Li Tanan gently placed the jade tablet with the word Tiger's Might on the table in front of the white-robed old man, then bowed to him deeply before scattering. The interior space of the Tiger Might Hall was circular, with a radius of a few dozen meters. In the space on the first floor of the pavilion, there were many colorful, humanoid statues arranged neatly. Each statue was around 1.6 meters tall, sparkling untranslucent, vivid and lifelike. The auras exuding from the statues were different, be it strong, weak, hot, cold, light, overbearing, or gentle like water, or violent like fire. Tang Huan scanned through with his eyes. There were at least 200 to 300 of these statues. According to the number of cultivation technique battle skills the statue represented, there were 200 to 300 of them. This was only the first and second floor of Tiger Might Hall. Adding on the second and third floor, Tiger Clan would have even more battle skills. To be able to become one of the 4 great clans of the Firing Dragon Mountain Range, he truly lived up to his name. Before everyone had entered, there were only a few cultivators in the pavilion. Tang Huan only glanced at it once, and stopped paying attention to it, and started shuttling between the statues. To Tang Huan, if he really wanted to cultivate, then with his 5 colors true spirit, he should be able to learn any of the cultivation technique here. However, since he could only choose one, he naturally had to choose the best. This one. The excited laughter suddenly resounded in the entire space. It was Hukai's fan-like palm pressing on the head of a golden statue. Following that, a clear buzzing sound came out from the statue's body. Strands of golden chi rose up, quickly condensing into a ball the size of a cherry, shooting towards Hukai. In a blink of an eye, it had already entered between his brows and disappeared without a trace. After Hukai, countless people kept on choosing the martial skills they wanted. Tang Huan was not anxious at all, walking leisurely to the center of the pavilion, but suddenly stopped in front of a statue, and exclaimed in surprise. This statue was extremely strange. One half of it was pitch black, while the other half was as white as snow. Strangely, no aura was emitted from this statue. What skill is this statue hiding? Tang Huan was a little doubtful. With that thought, Tang Huan immediately activated the Great Harmony Heavenly Classics, and within the Danshan, the 9 Yang Divine Furnace and the 5 Colors True Spirit began to quickly circulate. The perception ability instantly raised to the limit, and began to carefully inspect the sculpture. After a moment, Tang Huan's eyes revealed a strange light. It was not that the statue did not have any aura, it was that the aura it gave off had blended into the surrounding air. When Tang Huan first condensed the pellet, what he comprehended was the way of nature. Now that the pellet had turned into a true spirit, his comprehension of the way of nature had deepened, and he could merge his own body into the surrounding world at any time. If not for that, Tang Huan would never have sensed the presence of the statue. Amidst the shock, Tang Huan became even more curious and continued to investigate carefully. Very quickly, Tang Huan discovered the unique part of the statue's qi. The qi was actually filled with a sense of harmony between right and wrong, and merged with yin and yang. When Tang Huan's mind was immersed in it, he could even faintly feel that it was resonating with the Great Harmony Heavenly Classics he was cultivating. I don't know if it's a skill or a battle skill, but there's no harm in choosing it. Tang Huan squinted his eyes and immediately made a decision. In the next moment, Tang Huan's right arm raised slightly, his palm pressing onto the head of the statue. Following the activation of the 5 Colors True Spirit, the vigorous genuine qi roared out like a torrent. Beside the door, the white-robed old man sitting behind the table suddenly opened his eyes. The old man looked at Tang Huan with surprise, and a voice that only he could hear sounded out, "This guy actually chose the most powerful technique of the Tiger Might Hall?" Is he trying to test his luck? Or did he really sense the difference in the sculpture? This kind of cultivation technique is not so easy to obtain. The white-robed old man's face revealed a slight smile, and his eyes slowly closed again. Ever since Lord Husi obtained this cultivation technique and kept it within his Tigermite Hall apostrophe, in the past 2,000 years, there has not been a single person. But before he finished speaking, his eyes that had just closed opened once again, as if he had found something extremely inconceivable. In front of Tang Huan, the statues seemed to have come to life as black and white lights flashed around it. Buzz. In a split second, the sound from the sculpture started to vibrate, gradually increasing in volume from low to high. At the same time, strands of two-colored chi started to rise from the statue, quickly gathering in the air above his head. Wang, wang. And it was also at this time that the hundreds of statues in the area started trembling simultaneously. Several hundred notes burst out at the same time, overlaying one another, and immediately formed a huge sound wave that spread throughout the entire first level of Tigermite Hall. It was extremely deafening. Chapter 750, Yin and Yang Void Method. The trembling sound of the black and white statue actually made all the statues in this space cry in unison. Not only was the first floor of Tigermite Hall so, even the second and third floors were filled with thunderous sounds, as if the entire pavilion was about to collapse from the thunderous noise. The sudden commotion caused Li Tanan and the others who had yet to leave were greatly shocked. First, they subconsciously looked around. Then one after another, their gazes fell on Tang Huan, who was in the middle of the pavilion. What kind of battle skill did that statue contain? How could it cause such a commotion? After a short moment of surprise, Li Tanan and the others were extremely shocked and curious, suppressing the strong urge in their hearts to run over and over again. Only then did they not run over. This kid actually succeeded. At the side of the door, the white-robed old man widened his eyes as he involuntarily sucked in a breath of cold air, an expression of disbelief on his face. What's going on? What's going on? SSH, it seems like all the statues are ringing. Outside Tigermite Hall, Hukai and the others who had been the first to come out were all startled by the thunderous roar that suddenly came out from the pavilion, and then they stuck their heads out and looked around. All of them bewildered. Since the creation of Tigermite Hall, there seemed to have never been such a commotion. 1,000 meters away, the cultivators inside and outside the tiger crouching also stopped what they were doing, and in the blink of an eye, they all looked towards the Tigermite Hall. It seems to be the voice from the Tigermite Hall, right? With such a large commotion, could it be that the Tigermite Hall has collapsed? Impossible. The Tigermite Hall is the most important place for us Tiger Clan to collect cultivation techniques and battle skills. Even if the tiger crouching falls, the Tigermite Hall will not fall. Everyone looked at each other in shock as they muttered. Deep within the Tiger Vigor Summit, inside the caves, a low cry that was as thin as a mosquito sounded out. This was a white space that had a radius of over 10 meters. The fog churned and a figure was faintly discernible within it. It was a middle-aged man around the age of 40. He wore a green robe, and he was handsome and refined. The elegance of his youth could be vaguely seen between his brows. There's actually a later generation kid who obtained the Yin and Yang Void Method that Master had left behind all those years ago. The mumbling sound became weaker and weaker, and after a while, the surrounding mist churned, completely enveloping middle-aged man in purple robes figure. What kind of technique is this? Inside Tigermite Hall's first floor, Tang Huan's heart was also thumping loudly. That was totally out of his expectation. However, things had already come to this, so Tang Huan naturally could not stop. According to his observations, after the black and white energy condensed and formed above the statue's head, it was actually extremely similar to the yin-yang image from his previous life. Of course, at this moment, it was the size of a walnut ball. In a blink of an eye, the black and white chi turned into a ray of light and shot forward like lightning. Tang Huan did not dodge and allowed it to strike between his eyebrows. It was also at this moment that the world-shaking rumbling sound disappeared without a trace, and the Tigermite Hall was calm once more. In the next moment, The black and white aura seemed to explode in his mind, instantly transforming into countless pieces of information. Tang Huan calmed his heart and became immersed in it. After a long while, Tang Huan finally retracted his hand and let out a long sigh. In the blink of an eye, he slightly nodded towards Li Tanan and the others who were staring at him blankly. Tang Huan then walked out of the pavilion, but there was an unconcealable joy and excitement between his brows. So it's a yin and yang void method. Tang Huan walked quickly through the entrance of the pavilion, but he did not realize that the white-robed old man beside the door had already disappeared. Yin and yang void method. At the peak of the Tiger Vigor Summit, within a small hall, a cry of alarm suddenly sounded out. The yin and yang void method that ancestor Hu Si obtained 2,000 years ago. The one who spoke was a tall and sturdy old man with snow-white hair. The mustache on his face was like numerous steel needles, making him look extremely mighty. This old man was Tiger Clan, Hu Lai. Although he didn't move an inch, it was as if a terrifying power was surging and churning within Hu Lai's abnormally robust body. It was as if it could erupt out like a volcano at any time and tear all the obstacles in the world to pieces. Exactly opposite Hu Lai, a thin figure sat upright. It was the white-robed elder from the Tiger Might Hall. Even at this moment, there was still a trace of surprise between his brows. After a moment of shock, Hu Lai's eyebrows rose as he laughed. Elder Hu Zong, who is that person? But are Hu family's disciples? This is not the case. Hu Zong shook his head, and said somewhat helplessly, that man is surnamed Huan, and came from the Chen village, and was specially accepted by Deacon Yuan Kun as the clan guardians a few days ago. Chen Huan, Chen village. Hu Lai frowned, but came to a realization. I remember that a while ago, Deacon Yuan Kun sent someone to deliver a piece of pre-celestial dragonstone S, saying that it was given by the Chen village, while he gave the Holy Tiger Gold Medallion to the Chen village, giving 2 spots to Special as a reward. I never thought that the one who would obtain the yin and yang void method would be a disciples with another surname. Hu Lai sighed with regret, but his eyebrows soon relaxed. There's no harm in having a different surname from the disciples. They're all from my Tiger Clan. Elder Hu Zong, how old is Chen Huan now? He's not even 25. He's a rank 2 true spirit cultivator, Hu Zong said. Although he can't compare to Hu Zhuan, Hu Qin and the others, he can still be considered to be a genius. Hu Lai slightly nodded, and then immediately said in a heavy voice, Elder Hu Zong, immediately warn everyone who knows about this. Under no circumstances can this news be leaked. The violator will be severely punished. Yes, I will go now. Hu Zong's figure flashed and disappeared from the palace. There was a trace of excitement on Hu Lai's face, and he sighed as he muttered to himself, it's been 2,000 years, and now someone has finally obtained the yin and yang void method from Tiger Might Hall. The heavens are truly helping my Tiger Clan. Perhaps the blame will fall on this kid named Chen Huan. Someone, go ask Commander Hu Zhao to come here. Yes, sir. At the entrance of the palace hall, a silhouette replied as he departed. At this moment, on the second floor of the Great Hall, a trace of astonishment appeared on Hu Zhao's stern face. In 10 days' time, you completed the mission of collecting the flamingo blood beads, and it was even more exceptional. The number of blood droplets you have collected is close to 500, and with just Li Tanan and Hu Kei, it's impossible for them to accomplish this step. Could it be because of him? Hu Zhao could not help but think of a young and handsome face. Chen Huan? Hu Zhao squinted, and softly muttered the name. Chapter 751, Divine Powers. Wind God Valley, number 643 Courtyard. On top of the praying mat that was sparkling untranslucent like jade, Tang Huan had already sat down quietly as the chant yin and yang void method appeared in his mind time and time again. This yin and yang void method was neither a combat skill like the Overlord's Armageddon nor a pure cultivation technique like the Great Harmony Heavenly Classics. Accurately speaking, it was a divine ability that was somewhere between a Tao and a cultivation technique. The so-called Tao was the way of cultivation, just like the way of nature that Tang Huan had comprehended when he was condensing the pellet. Different daos could produce different kinds of cultivation methods and battle skills. These cultivation methods and battle skills all had to follow the rules of cultivation. As for the sacred art, it did not simply follow the law of the Tao, but directly embedded the law of the Tao within it. It could even integrate a cultivation technique or a battle skill. Once it was used, its power would fill the skies and the earth. Tang Huan originally did not know a single thing about these things, and even had never heard of any sacred art before. However, after acquiring the Yin and Yang Void method, he immediately understood everything. In that moment, Tang Huan seemed to see a brand new door open before his eyes. Divine abilities could not be cultivated lightly. If it was not compatible with one's body, not only would it cause one's cultivation to stagnate, it was even possible that one's cultivation would go berserk and lose their life. However, Tang Huan felt that the Yin and Yang Void method he had just acquired in the Tiger Might Hall was extremely compatible with his way of nature, especially with the Great Harmony Heavenly Classics he had cultivated in. Not only did it not conflict with him, it even felt like there was a mixture of water and milk. The meaning behind the Great Harmony Heavenly Classics is that the four images should be combined into one and form Tai Chi, and Tai Chi can transform into Yin and Yang. The two did not conflict, and perhaps that was the reason. As for way of nature, it originally encompassed everything, including the principles of everything. Yin and Yang were naturally also within it. Tang Huan's thoughts changed. After coming to a realization, he felt a sense of urgency. Although it was his first time seeing this, he could feel that this Yin and Yang Void method was extraordinary. In the entire Tiger clan, there are bound to be extremely few divine powers. Even if there are a few, they are definitely inferior to the Yin and Yang Void method, which can be seen from the movements made by the Tiger Might Hall at that time. If Tang Huan was a person who possessed the bloodline of the Hu, obtaining the Yin and Yang Void method would only raise his spirits. It was a pity that Tang Huan was a stranger. For someone with a different surname to obtain the strongest ability in the Tiger clan, it would definitely attract the attention of the higher-ups in the Tiger clan. To Tang Huan, this might not necessarily be a good thing. Within Tiger clan, there were as many as 1,000 people. Furthermore, he definitely has his own space aircraft. Although Tang Huan had a flying shuttle and could condense its wings, he did not have the advantage. Furthermore, Tang Huan had heard of it before. The Tiger clan had an expert whose cultivation had surpassed the true spirit level. Once Tang Huan obtains the Yin and Yang Void method, even if he becomes a guardian, the Tiger clan would probably not allow him to leave so easily. If Tiger clan was thought of in a more miserable way, it might not be long before Tiger clan used some special method to completely control him and make him into a puppet of the Tiger clan. Although this possibility was not very high, as long as there was a 1 in 100 chance of it happening, then it was enough to make anyone feel uneasy. When the space aircraft and the ability to fly was not enough to rely on, once a conflict broke out with the Tiger clan, it would be very dangerous. We need to change our plans. There are a total of 3 transformations to this Yin and Yang Void method apostrophe, and even if one only comprehended the first transformations, they would still be able to preserve their life. Tang Hua took a light breath. He had originally planned to cultivate in Spiritual Soul Cave after returning from there. With Initial Spirit Heavenly Crystal and Tiger Vigor Essential Chi, his cultivation would increase even faster. But now, Tang Huan decided to first delve into the Yin and Yang Void method. In an instant, Tang Huan removed all distracting thoughts from his mind and calmed his mind. Time flew, and the news of Tang Huan obtaining the Yin and Yang Void method was not leaked at all. That day, the strange movements of the Tiger Might Hall were gradually forgotten by others, and following the continuous return of the Clan Guardian group who were out on a mission, the originally calm Wind God Valley became more and more lively. Team 50 returned so quickly. Could it be that they're not doing the task of collecting the flamingo blood beads? Am I seeing things? Is the 16th team from Squad 50? Hiss. 650,000 contribution. Heck, if I remember correctly, Team 50 used to only have 30,000 contribution points, But they actually got 620,000 contribution points for this mission, 488. Nearly 500 flamingo blood beads only took 10 days? Do you think Lazy is an idiot to believe such nonsense? What, is that true? Every time a clan guardian group returned to the main hall in the depths of the Wind God Valley, this kind of conversation would occur again and again. Squad 50, which had originally been at the bottom of the list for many years, suddenly flipped over. During the course of the Flamingo Blood Beads quest, they collected nearly 500 blood droplets, causing all the clan guardians to be greatly surprised. The 620,000 contribution points that Squad 50 received caused everyone to be even more envious. Li Danan, the leader, was still alright, but Hukai, Luo Xingkong, Tongj and the other members of Squad 50 were extremely pleased with themselves, causing the other clan guardians to feel sour inside as they asked about the details of Squad 50's mission. Although Hukai and the rest were short of words, in the end, not everyone was able to handle the attacks from the numerous clan guardians, so the news still leaked out. It was only then that everyone realized that the special called Chen Huan had the ability to condense wings and fly in the air. The reason why Team 50 was able to gather nearly 500 flamingo blood beads in such a short period of time was all due to him. Not only could it fly, it also had the powerful ability to heavily injure Lei Bao with 3 punches. This was definitely a treasure. For a time, many of the clan guardian group captain were full of regret. When they were selecting their members that day, everyone's attention was focused on the true spirit cultivators who had passed the clan guardians elections. They had actually missed out on such a treasure, causing Team 50 to pick up such a great bargain. However, at this point, he could only call for help. Just as the many captains of the clan guardian group were feeling regretful, inside the number 643 courtyard, Tang Huan was not affected by the external influence in the slightest. His entire mind was focused on the yin and yang void method. During this period, Chen Yu had sneaked into the courtyard multiple times. Although Tang Huan had sensed something, he did not stop to comprehend the divine powers, and Chen Yu did not disturb Tang Huan. He stayed stunned for a moment, and then quietly left. Unknowingly, Tang Huan had already stayed in the courtyard for an entire month. In the morning, the gentle sunlight passed through the window pane and shone on Tang Huan, who was sitting cross-legged in his room. Tang Huan, who was completely motionless like a wooden sculpture made out of clay, suddenly opened his eyes. Chapter 752, Heavenly Invisibility. In the next moment, a bizarre change happened to Tang Huan's 2 eyeballs. One of them was as black as ink, while the other was as white as snow. Immediately after, within his eye sockets, a black and white aura started to revolve rapidly, and in the blink of an eye, Tang Huan's eyes seemed to have turned into 2 vortexes, one black and one white. Very quickly, the 2 vortexes leaked out of his eye sockets, quickly circling around, and actually covered Tang Huan's entire body. Following that, Tang Huan's body started to fade, and in the time of 1 or 2 breaths, he completely melted into the air. Not only did he not release any of his own qi, the Sumeru magical ring and other items on his body also did not reveal any of his qi. It was as if Tang Huan had disappeared from the room without any trace. Heavenly invisibility. This was the first change of the yin and yang void method. Before this, Tang Huan could only rely on the way of nature he had comprehended, in addition to the unique 5 colors true spirit to create a feeling of his entire being becoming one with the void. However, this fusion could only allow a perfect fusion of energy into the surrounding world, which could still be seen with the other person's eyes. On the other hand, the yin and yang void method completely merged itself with the world, showing a miraculous effect similar to invisibility. It was fortunate that Tang Huan had comprehended way of nature back then, otherwise, it would have been impossible for him to comprehend this kind of change within a month's time. Of course, if it wasn't for this, Tang Huan wouldn't have obtained the ability yin and yang void method. This is the true body fusion. A smile emerged on Tang Huan's forehead. At this moment, he was still seated cross-legged on the praying mat, but no one could see his existence. Immediately after, Tang Huan slightly moved his feet, and floated out of the room like a ghost, and did not trigger any movement in the air. Once the first form of the yin and yang void method ability was unleashed, the entire person seemed to have become a part of nature, as long as one did not use weapons and did not reveal the body of the yin and yang void method. Even if one used the greatest speed possible, it was impossible to cause any commotions in the air. After a while, Tang Huan left the courtyard and walked onto the main road of Wind God Valley. On the road, there would be cultivators at the peak of Heavenly Domain or True Spirit level walking past them from time to time. However, even though they were less than a meter away from Tang Huan, they did not sense anything. Tang Huan became excited and rushed towards the depths of Wind God Valley. His speed was extremely fast and he had already reached the limit of his flesh body. Not long after, Tang Huan entered the palace in the depths of the valley. Inside the palace, a group of clan guardian group had just returned from a mission, and it was quite lively. Tang Huan floated past them and went up the stairs. On the second floor of the palace, sat cross-legged in the middle of the dimension with his eyes closed. Tang Huan arrived in front of Hu Zhao in a few steps, and waved his hand in front of him. Hu Zhao did not move at all. In a moment of excitement, Tang Huan used his right index and middle finger, using his finger as a sword, using the 9 moves of Wandering Dragon he had initially learned in front of Hu Zhao. Although he had not activated the genuine Qi, but with Tang Huan's current flesh body, the might of this battle skill was still peerless. At this time, the distance between the two was only a few meters, but Hu Zhao was still sitting straight and did not notice anything. After the 9 sword techniques, Tang Huan could not help but laugh, as he was completely at ease. Clan Guardian Commander was definitely a strong ranker from the rank 7 True Spirit. Even he could not discover them, much less the other True Spirit cultivators. As for those great rankers whose cultivations exceeded the True Spirit level, although Tang Huan had not seen any of them, it would not be easy for them to discover Tang Huan after using this sacred art. Furthermore, with Tang Huan's current state, if he wanted to sneak attack someone, he could directly and silently approach them. When he was extremely close, he could suddenly launch the fiercest of attacks, and no one could dodge him. The power of this divine ability was indeed astonishing. Tang Huan thought about it and sighed. This was only the first stage of the yin and yang void method. If he could learn the last 2 stages, wouldn't it be even more heaven-defying? Unfortunately, with Tang Huan's current cultivation, being able to comprehend heavenly invisibility could be considered a miracle. If he wanted to comprehend the last 2 changes, they were still very far away. After strolling around the second floor, Tang Huan directly jumped down from the window. His body was as light as a feather. When he landed on the ground, not to mention the sound, even the air around him didn't change at all. Tang Huan's body moved like lightning, sprinting along the main road. He was prepared to explore the wind-howling city in this state, and also find some strangers to try out the heavenly invisibility. However, before they could even reach the entrance of the valley, Tang Huan's expression changed drastically as he sprinted back at an even faster speed. As soon as he returned to the 643 courtyard, before he even had the chance to enter the room, Tang Huan's figure quickly appeared in his view. That was close. Tang Huan sat down on a stone chair by the side and exhaled, but his face was already exhausted, and he had a dispirited look. The first time he used yin and yang void method, heavenly invisibility, in his excitement, he had actually forgotten the most important thing. Divine abilities were not rooted to the point of being duckweed. They were also based on strength. Moreover, the speed at which one consumed their strength was unbelievably fast. It had already surpassed any and every combat skill that Tang Huan could execute. When they were almost to the mouth of the valley, realized that his strength was almost at the bottom, hence he returned as fast as he could. Tang Huan had treated this method as one of his trump cards. If he were to appear halfway and be seen by others, he would not even be able to cry. Fortunately, he managed to enter his residence in the end. Now, Tang Huan's energy had been completely exhausted. Not only had the Danshan become empty, not even a single strand of the mind power remained. When your power is at its peak, When you use yin and yang void method, you can only maintain it for about half an hour. If you use a portion of your power, the duration will be even shorter. Tang Huan quickly calculated, but he was not worried at all. When he had just arrived at Forging God Great World, even the saber-toothed green carapace beast, which was at the peak of the heavenly domain, took a long time to catch up to him. Now that he was using the sun spirit body, his flesh body was bound to be even faster. Even if he did not use the genuine qi, a quarter of an hour was more than enough for him to run far. At least, it was enough to escape. And as his cultivation continued to rise, the duration he would be able to maintain yin and yang void method, heavenly invisibility, would be longer and longer. While thinking about it, a smile uncontrollably appeared on Tang Huan's face, but after a moment, he raised his eyebrows and a look of surprise flashed past his eyes. The sound of footsteps could be heard approaching from outside the courtyard. Chapter 753, New Mission. Brother Chen Huan has been cultivating in seclusion for so long. I wonder how the situation is. If Brother Chen Huan is still in closed-door cultivation, then there's no harm in leaving a few days later. After all, we don't have to rush this mission. As he muttered, the courtyard door opened with a creak. Two figures walked in stealthily, seemingly afraid of disturbing the owner of the courtyard. They were the leaders and vice-captains of Squad 50, Li Danan, and Hu Kai. Brother Li, Big Brother Hu, Tiger. The voice that suddenly sounded startled the two. They subconsciously looked towards the direction of the voice and saw Tang Huan sitting on a stone chair not far away. Brother Chen Huan, are you done cultivating this time? Hu Kai came back to reality and immediately became happy. Li Tanan was also pleasantly surprised, but in the next moment, his expression could not help but change. Brother Chen Huan, why are you looking like this? Is there a problem in your cultivation? Qi deviation? Hu Kai was startled, and immediately shouted out. Only then did he realize that Tang Huan's face was full of weariness, as if he was dispirited. Tang Huan, who had never been injured or exchanged blows with others, suddenly displayed the state he was in right now. The two words that flashed past Hu Kai's mind was practically a conditioned reflex. It's fine, it's fine. Seeing their expressions, Tang Huan could guess what they were thinking, and said quickly, "Today I have comprehended something, and trained a type of battle skill for a long time, but I went overboard and used up all of my energy, resulting in my current situation. Don't worry, I will recover soon." "That's good." Li Tanan and Hu Kai heaved a sigh of relief, but they didn't know whether to laugh or cry. Tang Huan laughed, then asked, "Brother Li, Big Brother Hu, Tiger, you came to find me, is it to carry out another mission?" While speaking, Tang Huan felt that it was a little strange. Generally speaking, within a year, each faction of the Clan Guardian group would have to complete 4 missions, going through them once every 3 months. Although Tang Huan did not pay much attention to the days of comprehending yin and yang void method, he could feel that he had probably only trained for about a month or so. "Exactly." Li Tanan nodded his head and smiled. "Brother Chen Huan, this time, there is a mission that is more suitable for us. After completing the mission, the rewards will be a lot of contribution and the danger won't be too great, so Hu Kai and I will immediately ask Manager Hu Yu to accept this mission." "What task is it?" Tang Huan was a little interested. To carry out 4 missions was the duty of a clan guardians. In addition to those 4 missions, each of the Clan Guardian group were also able to take the initiative to look for Hu Yu to receive missions that they found suitable. The reason why Squad 1 had been able to obtain 3 million contribution points so quickly was because they had taken on 2 more dangerous missions in addition to the missions specified in their duties. Furthermore, they had both completed them very well. "Look for the gem vein," Li Tanan said while beaming. "Gem vein?" Tang Huan's heart skipped a beat. Ever since he left the Chen village, Zhao Budian's entire group stayed inside the space aircraft S, and the gems inside had probably been eaten up already. It was time to replenish some of the gems. If he could successfully find the gem vein, there was a hint of happiness between Li Tanan's brows. "If we can complete this mission, we'll be able to receive the highest amount of 1 million contribution points. Even if we fail, we'll be able to obtain 20,000 contribution points. Tang Huan muttered to himself, there are indeed no dangers in this mission, and completing any rewards will be extremely tempting. However, the difficulty of completing it is not small. After spending a lot of time, it's very likely that our Team 50 would return empty-handed. In the end, we'll only be able to obtain 20,000 rewards. Indeed, Li Tanan laughed. Whether or not we can complete this mission, it all depends on luck. However, even if we can't find the mine, we can search for the gem in that area. If we can find a certain amount of gem, we can still obtain a lot of contribution points. This time, if we can get 100,000 contribution points, that's about it. Hu Kai added, the most important thing is that this mission is indeed very suitable for our team. That's true. Tang Huan couldn't help but laugh. The rest were all heavenly domain cultivators, and Li Tanan, the person with the strongest cultivation, was even injured. Even though he had not fully recovered from his injuries, and had climbed up to the top 20 of the contribution list, his overall strength was still at the bottom of the 50 Clan Guardian Group S. For Squad 50, although the dangerous missions that required them to go deep into the Firing Dragon Mountain range would reward them greatly, they would simply be unable to execute them. They could only watch as the rewards drooled, and this current mission to search for the gem vein was indeed very suitable. Brother Li, Big Brother Hu, Tiger, when are we leaving? Then, Tang Huan asked. If you are still in closed-door cultivation, then we will leave late. However, since you have already left, the earlier you leave, the better. How about we set off in the afternoon? You should be able to recover almost all of your strength in half a day. Li Tanan laughed. Alright, then let's do it in the afternoon. After sending Li Tanan and Hu Kai out of the courtyard, Tang Huan returned to his room and sat down cross-legged. With a thought, a small box appeared from within the Sumeru magical ring. Inside contained the 120 initial spirit heavenly crystal that he had obtained from the tiger crouching seed back then. Taking one out and holding it in his hand, Tang Huan immediately activated the Great Harmony Heavenly Classics. Within the Danshan, the 9 Yang Divine Furnace and the 5 Colors True Spirit operated to their limits. In just the blink of an eye, Tang Huan felt a gentle power from the initial spirit heavenly crystal in his palm that continuously flowed into his body like water. Although this power was extremely gentle, it was abnormally pure, rich, and majestic. Even the tiger vigor essential chi could not compare to it. The initial spirit heavenly crystal is magical indeed. Tang Huan was slightly surprised. The reason why the spiritual soul cave's cultivation speed was so fast was mainly because of the coordination between the tiger vigor essential chi and the pressure inside the cave. However, if one were to continuously use initial spirit heavenly crystal to cultivate outside, the effect would have exceeded that of the middle section of Spiritual Soul Cave. It might even be comparable to the later parts of Spiritual Soul Cave. In an instant, Tang Huan had already calmed his mind, and the genuine chi and the mind power in his body quickly became filled up. The long period of time he had gained insights into the yin and yang void method had allowed Tang Huan's comprehension of the Great Harmony Heavenly Classics to deepen by another level. Adding the effects of the 9 Yang Divine Furnace and the 5 Colors True Spirit, the speed at which Tang Huan had absorbed and refined the initial spirit heavenly crystal was shockingly fast. After approximately half an hour, Tang Huan's energy had already recovered, and the initial spirit heavenly crystal in his palm had disappeared without a trace, completely refined. Tang Huan did not stop. He extended his hand and grabbed out 10 initial spirit heavenly crystals from the box and continued to circulate his cultivation technique. Chapter 754. On the fields in the northwest of Firing Dragon Mountain Range, a river snaked its way forward, like a crawling dragon. This river originated from the depths of the mountain range. After extending for several thousand miles, it converged into a massive lake. However, the river and lake had dried up long ago. On the exposed riverbed, all kinds of big and small stones could be seen, and the lake itself had turned into sand. Whoosh, whiz. Weak sounds were heard, like threads dragging them through the air. 20 of them were like lightning, flying along the riverbed, They were the 50 Clan Guardian Group S from Wind Howling City. Li Tanan and Hu Kai were at the front, with Tang Huan following closely behind. Behind them were Chen Yu, Luo Xingkong, Tong Jin, the other cultivators at the peak of Heavenly Domain. In order for the team members to catch up, Li Tanan, Hu Qi, and Tang Huan did not use their full strength. But even so, under the high-speed rush, Li Tanan and Hu Kai were like wild horses that had escaped the reins. Their movements were rather rough, yet Tang Huan had always been strolling leisurely. Not only was his speed not slow, he even looked kind and pleasing to the eye. When the people behind looked at Tang Huan, their eyes were filled with admiration. The crowd did not utter a word as they moved quickly. Unknowingly, it was already noon. Ever since the lake and river dried up 100 years ago, word had been spreading, saying that there were gem vein in this area. No one had ever seen that mine before. However, there were indeed many people who found a large number of precious gems in the river and in the lake. Because of this, not only Tiger Clan S who were closest to the rivers and lakes, but even Dragon Clan S from the east and south of the Firing Dragon Mountain Range S would frequently send cultivators over. Initially, the people who came here to investigate were the most powerful figures of the various clans, but they didn't discover anything. Thus, in recent years, the people who came here were all young cultivators. For example, the Tiger Clan would always issue a quest after obtaining new information about the gem vein, so that he could investigate. For Squad 50 to receive this mission this time, it was purely luck. The cultivator who reported the news about the mine to Hu Kai was his cousin Hu Kai. On the same day, he revealed the situation to Hu Kai, who immediately found Hu Yu. Sure enough, when the two rushed to the Clan Guardians' main hall, Hu Yu was prepared to post the quest of finding the mines. If they were just one more step, most likely many teams would rush to complete this quest. It should be here. Suddenly, Li Tanan, who was at the front, stopped in his tracks, and took out a small map from his bosom. After comparing it with the terrain of this area, he revealed a smile on his face. The terrain of this area was quite strange. After the river, which spanned tens of kilometers, arrived at this place, it was suddenly split open in the middle by a narrow mountain range that was thousands of meters wide. It continued to zigzag forward for hundreds of kilometers before converging once more. A few days ago, a cultivator from the Wind Howling City found dozens of gems in this area. Brother Li, why don't we all split up? Tang Huan swept his gaze once around, and said with a smile, I will be in a team with Chen Yu. You and Big Brother Hu, Tiger, will each take one person, and the other 4 or 5 people will be in a group. 6 groups will search around at the same time, and will be able to search this area faster. Alright, we'll follow what Brother Chen Huan said. Li Tanan clapped his hands and laughed. After a while, the 6 groups of Clan Guardians began to move at the same time. 2 groups of Clan Guardians S went to the left, 2 groups to the back, and 2 groups of Clan Guardians S entered the small mountain range in the middle of the river. Tang Huan and Chen Yu were at the left side of the river, and the 2 of them were following the river to the left. Buzz. After walking forward another few thousand meters, the flying shuttle had already rushed out from within Tang Huan's embrace as it rapidly expanded, and let out an excited rumbling sound. In the next moment, a blue shadow flashed, and the little thing appeared from within the space aircraft. Yeah. After being stunned for a moment, the little thing immediately regained its senses, and started to cry out repeatedly in surprise. The 4 pairs of small wings flapped continuously, and then flew up dozens of meters into the sky, rolling and tumbling non-stop, before suddenly diving down and jumping crazily. It stayed inside the space aircraft all alone for a long time, eating, sleeping and eating, almost making it go crazy. I knew it. You proposed that everyone split up to search for the mine in order to release this little guy. Seeing that, Chen Yu could not help but smile. After being trapped inside for so long, it's time for this little fellow to come out and take a breather. Looking at the cheerful figure of the little thing, Tang Huan revealed a doting look in his eyes. With this little fellow here, even if I can't find the mines, I'll be able to find a large number of gems. Tang Huan had already understood that this river and this lake contained a myriad of gems, But there was only one that appeared the most, and that was the neon gem. In Forging God Great World, the classification of gems was slightly different from that of small dimensions. The gems of this small world were divided into 5 ranks: low, middle, high, heaven, and saint. In addition, there were God tier gems above Forging God Great World and saint tier gems. However, divine level stones were divided into 5 ranks, and there were extremely few naturally occurring God tier gems. The majority of them were synthesized through mysterious means. Because of this, in the Forging God Great World, other than the weapon refiner who was respected as usual, there was also another type of existence that had extremely high status, and that was the gem synthetic master. As to how the God tier jewels were synthesized, Tang Huan didn't know for the time being. If there was a chance in the future, he could try to find out more about it. Although the grade of the gems here wasn't much different from that of a small world, the types of gems here were by no means comparable to those of a small world. There were more than 1,000 kinds of saint-grade gem among the gems that had been explored so far. That neon gem was also a saint-grade gem, and it was the highest quality saint-grade gem. In the Wind-Howling City, a single neon gem was worth 40 initial spirit heavenly crystal, and they were so priceless that there was no market for them. If clan guardians found neon gem and turned them in, not only would they get 40 initial spirit heavenly crystal for each of them, their subordinate clan guardian group would even get a reward of 10,000 contribution points. The same was true for the other gems. Li Tanin and the others did not hold much hope for the mines. They only wanted to find a few more gems. It seems like our trip here will not be in vain. Chen Yu was all smiles, and a trace of anticipation appeared in her beautiful eyes. Of course, Tang Huan laughed, then waved his hand at the little thing, saying, "Little guy, it's time for us to work. Your future rations will all be here." Yeah. The little thing flapped its little wings and quickly landed on Tang Huan's shoulder. It was extremely happy. "Let's go." Tang Huan patted the little thing's head and put it away. At almost the same time, the horns on little thing's head started to reveal an extremely agile golden luster. Its pair of big eyes were slightly closed. Its small body was motionless, as though it was extremely focused. Chapter 755, Fancy Raw Stone. Chen Yu followed closely behind. The 120 initial spirit heavenly crystal allowed her cultivation to improve greatly, and the speed at which she traveled was even faster than when she was collecting the flamingo blood beads a month ago. When Tang Huan had slightly slowed his pace, she also followed suit quite easily. Not only her, Luo Xingkong, Tongjin, the other cultivators at the peak of the heavenly domain were no exception. Yeah. Not long after, Zhao Budian suddenly let out a joyous cry. 4 pairs of wings flapped, and like arrows, they shot out from Tang Huan's shoulders like arrows, instantly landing on the gigantic boulder tens of meters away. Then, he first beckoned with his claws at Tang Huan, who was following him like a shadow, and then pointed at his own lower body. "You found the gem so quickly?" Chen Yu sized up the boulder in surprise, and then muttered in doubt, "This rock seems to have been touched by someone. Are there any more gems below it?" Judging by the traces, he should have been pulled out by someone and put back in place. Not only was this huge rock in such a state, many other rocks in the surrounding area had also been turned over. Besides, it should have been not that long ago. "You'll know when you see it." Tang Huan squinted his eyes and smiled, then nodded towards the little fellow. When it floated into the air, it grabbed onto the edge of the rock and lifted itself up, causing the big rock that was at the bottom of the Immortal River to fly up 10 meters. There was an additional 2 meters deep hole in the rock. At the bottom of the cave, there was a large amount of warm rock that had been pressed into the ground, but not a single gem. This was normal. If there was a gem at the bottom of the hole, it would have been taken by the person in front. Tang Huan's eyes swept across the area, and then he jumped down to the bottom of the pit, taking down the Conqueror Spear on his back. In the next moment, the long spear in Tang Huan's hand stabbed deeply into the bottom of the pit. The boundless genuine chi surged like a flood, with the Conqueror Spear at the center. It roared continuously, with power that could topple mountains and overturn the seas. In the blink of an eye, The sand and rocks at the bottom of the crater started rolling around like waves. The hole became deeper and bigger. In just a few moments, it had changed from several meters to a radius of 10 meters, and from 2 meters to nearly 20 meters. Within a 100-meter radius, the sky had already turned gray. At the edge of the hole, Zhao Budian was already lying on Chen Yu's shoulder, while Chen Yu's beautiful eyes were staring unblinkingly at the sand and earth waves that rolled up from Tang Huan's side. "Yeah!" Zhao Budian shouted out happily, and almost at the instant it finished speaking, 3 streaks of rainbow light shot up into the sky. Gem! Chen Yu's beautiful eyes lit up, and instantly flew into the air, chasing after the ray of light. Zhao Budian also rushed out from Chen Yu's shoulder without hesitation, and grabbed onto the ray of light. At almost the same time, a figure soared into the sky from the depths of the pit, faster than lightning. When Chen Yu landed on the ground, Tang Huan had also appeared beside her. Both of them held a multicolored gem in their hands. It looked like a crescent moon, and was about the size of a fist. It was emitting a magnificent luster, dazzling everyone who saw it. "It really is a neon gem," Chen Yu beamed. "Yeah!" Zhao Budian had also flown back, holding a neon gem in her 2 little claws. "There's no aura coming out from this rock?" Tang Huan studied the gem for a moment, his eyes revealing a look of doubt. In the past, when they were gambling in the Dragon Spring town, the ancient ore was wrapped in a thick layer of stone glue, which could completely isolate the gem's aura. However, there was no stone glue on the surface of the neon gem, and no chi was leaking out, but he did not know why. When he finished, he noticed that Chen Yu's eyes were strange. Tang Huan was startled, and then he understood that for a neon gem to have such a situation, it should be the common knowledge of the people of Forging God Great World, and he, a grand weapon refiner, actually did not know, so it was no wonder Chen Yu had looked at him with that kind of gaze. Tang Huan rolled her eyes. Just as Tang Huan was about to speak, her delicate voice rang out, "Among the ores of this world, aside from the ordinary primordial stones, there is also the fancy raw stone. Above the fancy raw stone, there is also the high-grade raw stone. The effect of the fancy raw stone isolating its aura far surpassed that of ordinary primeval stones. This neon gem should be originated from fancy raw stone apostrophe. After leaving the mine, the stone colloid on the surface of the fancy raw stone will become thinner and thinner with the passage of time, until it finally disappeared. However, the deepest layer of transparent colloid, in its natural state, will always exist, and even the strong rank 7 true spirit found it difficult to cut it apart." His voice paused slightly, and Chen Yu joked, "My great weapon refiner, do you understand now? I understood the reason long ago. It's just that I couldn't react to it in such a short time." Tang Huan laughed, and then laughed brazenly. However, his 2 eyes started to carefully observe, and sure enough, there was a completely transparent layer of gelatin on the surface of the neon gem, which was around 1 centimeter thick. Even with Tang Huan's perception ability, he could not detect the slightest hint of an aura. It was fortunate that this was the case, otherwise, the neon gem here would probably have been completely searched by the 4 great clans 100 years ago. Chen Yu rolled his eyes at Tang Huan in annoyance, but when he looked at Zhao Budian, his eyes contained a surprise that was hard to hide. "No matter how high my cultivation is, I would have to rely on luck to find the neon gem here. I never thought that this little fellow would be able to sense the existence of the gem from so far away. If not for Zhao Budian, who would have thought that there were 3 neon gem hidden 20 meters under that huge boulder? If the guy who flipped the giant rock knew that someone found the gem here, his eyes would probably turn red from jealousy." "Yeah!" On Tang Huan's shoulder, Zhao Budian raised his head and squinted his eyes complacently. "This guy has a talent for finding gems. I'm afraid there aren't many people in this world who can match up to him." Tang Huan was all smiles, but a hint of anticipation instantly surfaced in his eyes. This neon gem came from a fancy raw stone apostrophe. "Since there is an ore, then there must be a mine. If my luck is good, I might even be able to find mines." "That's hard to say." Chen Yu shook his head. "In the past 100 years, this river has basically been rummaged through thoroughly, But it's a pity that I didn't discover anything. Although this little guy's ability to search for gems was truly astonishing, a vein of gold was not comparable to a gem. It was possible for it to hide within a few thousand meters of the ground. No matter what, I have to find more gems first. It's good to be able to find the mine. As long as I have enough gems, I can make a lot of contribution points. Chapter 756, Eagle Clan. As the day went by, in a ravine that was dozens of meters wide, sand and earth were like waves as they rose into the air. After a while, a colorful light mixed within and soared into the sky. Immediately after, a black shadow chased after him and caught him in the palm of his hand, following which, the black shadow landed on the side of the valley and Tang Huan's handsome face was revealed. Dust filled the sky and sand rolled about, but his entire body was still spotlessly clean. Catch! Tang Huan casually threw the newly dug out neon gem at Chen Yu. How many are there? Including this one, it's 56 pills. Chen Yu laughed until his eyes became crescent moons, then happily placed the gem into the cloth bag in his hands. The neon gem number happens to be exactly 50, while the other gem's number 6. Even when Zhao Budian had first found the 3 neon gem, she had never thought that he would have such enormous gains. In less than an afternoon, he had already found over 50 gems. In Wind Howling City, there were many large-sized gem stores. However, it was impossible for any of the gem store to have so many neon gem. Under normal circumstances, it was as if every time a gem store released a few neon gem, they would immediately be snatched away by someone at a high price. If these 50 neon gem appeared, it would probably cause a huge commotion in Wind Howling City. Most importantly, Zhao Budian had not even finished searching for 10% of the region. If this entire area, and even the entire river and lake were to be searched thoroughly, the neon gem and other numbers would definitely reach an extremely frightening degree. Just thinking about it made Chen Yu dizzy. 1 neon gem could be exchanged for 40 initial spirit heavenly crystal, 50 neon gem, that would be 2,000 initial spirit heavenly crystal, and adding the 500,000 contribution points, I could get 100 initial spirit heavenly crystal, but it's still a bit too little. Tang Huan scratched his chin and thought, more than 2,000 initial spirit heavenly crystal and they're not enough? Chen Yu was a little speechless. If I don't find enough gems to exchange for tens of thousands of initial spirit heavenly crystals, how can I bring myself to go back? Tang Huan smiled from between his brows. To Chen Yu, 2,000 over initial spirit heavenly crystal could indeed be considered to be a huge amount, but this number was only 20% of the initial spirit heavenly crystal that Tang Huan had collected. Most importantly, Tang Huan's refining speed of the initial spirit heavenly crystal was simply too fast. He could not hold on for more than a few days at this level of initial spirit heavenly crystal. What? Tens of thousands? Chen Yu said as he ate. Go, let's continue. Seeing Chen Yu's stupefied expression, Tang Huan could not help but laugh out loud, but after a moment, Tang Huan's laughter stopped, and he frowned as he looked to his right. Oh! A long roar that sounded like it broke through golden stone came from afar. The source of the sound was at least 10 miles away, and there seemed to be a hint of anxiety in the sound. Hu Kai's voice. Chen Yu immediately regained consciousness. Are you in danger? Tang Huan frowned. When they were spreading out, they had agreed that if there was an emergency, they would use a whistle to inform everyone. And now that Hu Kai had called out, there must be something going on. Who knows, maybe he had met an enemy, or maybe there was some other unexpected situation. In this area, it wasn't only Tang Huan and the rest of the 50 teams Tiger Clans that were there were also other cultivators. This afternoon, Tang Huan and Chen Yu saw a few people in the distance. However, they had hidden themselves well. Those people did not realize the existence of Chen Yu's jewel bag and Zhao Budian. If not, they would have already started fighting. In between Minden's trucks, in a second, a hum sounded and space aircraft appeared in a flash. After sending Zhao Budian in, Tang Huan did not care so much, and grabbed onto Chen Yu's small hand, causing the majestic genuine qi to spill out. Like a water current, It flowed out and covered her in an instant. "Let's go." Chen Yu's beautiful face turned slightly hot. Just as she was about to pull back her hand, she was suddenly carried by Tang Huan, and flew forward quickly like a meteor. Whoosh! Without touching the ground, he seemed to float, and in an instant, he was already several kilometers away. In a little effort, Tang Huan and Chen Yu had already passed through the dried-up riverbed, and squeezed into the narrow mountain range in the middle of the two rivers. The edge of the mountain range was filled with small trees and shrubs. They were sparse in nature. Many areas were full of potholes, and there were traces of being dug out. Only at the center could he see the entire forest. Oh! After a short moment, another long howl surged into the sky, and it practically exploded in his ears. Tang Huan slightly adjusted his direction. After just a few thousand meters of walking through the forest with Chen Yu, more than 10 figures had already entered his vision, and a fierce battle was currently taking place in the depression in front of them. One side was comprised of more than a dozen young men and women who were dressed in the same way, while the other side was only Hu Kai. Behind Hu Kai, around 20 to 30 meters away, 6 figures laid motionless on the ground, their fates unknown. Amongst the group of 10, only one person was fighting with Hu Kai. The others were all spectating from all around. He was about 28 or 29 years old, with a handsome face and fair skin. Above his head, a huge white hawk with a frightening power pounced forward crazily, and facing Hu Kai, there was also a huge black tiger on top of his body, baring its fangs and brandishing its claws, looking sinister. Whether it was the white hawk or the black tiger, they were both condensed out of energy, and this method was known as the Great Image. Hu Kai's black tiger was a great image that came from his Hu clan's bloodline. As for the giant white hawk, Eagle Clan, these two words seemed to come out of Tang Huan's mind out of reflex. Other than the Eagle Clan, there was no one else who would appear here and condense a great image like Hu Kai and condense a white eagle great image. Unexpectedly, the Eagle Clan cultivators and Hu Kai had a conflict. Looking at the current situation of the battle, the Black Tiger Great Image activated by Hu Kai was being forced back step by step by the White Eagle Great Image. Haha, big brother Yingyu, this brat can't hold on much longer, kill him. I've long disliked this fellow from the Tiger Clan. This time, I've given them a good and deep lesson. With such a low cultivation, you actually dared to challenge Big Brother Yingyu. You truly don't know your own limits. In the surroundings, various sounds of ridicule rose and fell. Hu Kai clenched his teeth and glared, his entire body drenched in sweat, almost to the point of being weak. On the other hand, Yingyu's expression was much more relaxed, and a cold smile appeared between his brows. Hu Chi, I've played with you for so long. It's about time to end it. Screech. Almost at the same time Yingyu finished speaking, a sharp cry seemed to ring across the sky, as the giant white hawk's body instantly expanded in size by one-fold. Chapter 757, Flat Fur Beasts. Roar. Seeing that the white eagle's power had increased greatly, Hu Kai's face changed. Then, like a tiger, he let out an earth-shaking roar. Streaks of dark red stripes actually appeared on the body of the black tiger that was above his head. Bam! In the next moment, the falcon tiger frantically clashed with each other. With a loud crash, the strength chi was sent flying. The black tiger immediately retreated, and the dark red markings on its body vanished into thin air. Below, Hu Kai also suffered a heavy blow. His face immediately turned red, and in a moment, he was pushed back more than 10 meters, barely stabilizing his feet, as he spat out a mouthful of blood. The giant white hawk's body trembled slightly, but its ferocity only increased. I have underestimated you. Yingyu raised his eyebrows, and glanced at Hu Kai in surprise. However, in the next moment, his lips perked up as he laughed coldly. However, that's all for now. After capturing you, your teammates should be arriving soon, and today, your clan guardian group will not be able to escape. Screech. Almost at the same time Yingyu finished speaking, the white giant hawk shook its wings and pounced forward once again. Pang Shao's body moved, and swept up a terrifying storm. Under the impact of the storm, Hu Kai's body was on the verge of collapse, and his complexion had already become as pale as paper. In the sky above, the black tiger had opened its bloody mouth, and its appearance was extremely ferocious. Hu Kai's brows furrowed in anger, but his heart was filled with a bitter feeling. Previous great image attack had already caused him to suffer heavy injuries. This time, he could not endure it no matter what. However, he would not give up resisting. Just as he was preparing to gather the last of the genuine qi in his body, a sneer sounded out. "Make our team unable to escape with your little bird, Brother Chen Huan?" A familiar voice entered his ears. After a moment of daze, Hu Kai's eyes immediately lit up, and his face revealed surprise that was difficult to conceal. Immediately, Hu Kai heard a sharp sound breaking through the air. Following that, the brilliant red light pierced through the air. It was a sharp awl condensed from flames that whistled past. Inside the awl, there did not seem to be any heat spreading out, but Hu Kai could faintly feel that it contained a terrifying heat and an unstoppable sharpness. In a split second, the flaming pointed awl had already traversed the last 2 meters of empty space and smashed into the gigantic claw of the White Hawk with lightning speed. Previous chapter. Next chapter. Boom. Instantly, the red light shattered as the violent strength qi exploded layer after layer. The heat mixed in was like a volcanic eruption, and the temperature of the area began to rise at an alarming rate. Even the air began to emit crackling sounds. At this moment, visible ripples began to appear in the air. Hu Kai was not affected by the attack, and almost at the instant of explosion, a black figure had already appeared in front of him. His body was tall and slender, like a spear, and he held a spear in his hand. A few meters away, Yingyu let out a groan as he retreated several steps. In the air above his head, the giant white hawk also retreated quickly, and the claw that was slapping towards the flaming pointed awl shattered to pieces. Seeing this, the surrounding dozen people were shocked. Not only did this fellow who suddenly appeared not make a sound, he had also forced Yingyu to retreat with a single spear strike, and even Yingyu's white eagle great image was injured as well. It would have been fine if the person who came was an expert whose cultivation was higher than Yingyu, but looking at his qi undulations, he seemed to be a rank 2 true spirit cultivator. "Who are you?" Yingyu immediately stabilized his body, but his face instantly darkened. Almost at the same time, the white eagle's missing eagle claw quickly formed in the sky. Its 2 eyes coldly stared at the uninvited guest. Its wings flapped and its sharp hooked mouth slightly opened, as if it wanted to peck at him immediately. Tiger Clan, Chen Huan, the one who blocked Yingyu's great image attack suddenly, was naturally Tang Huan. After sweeping a glance at Yingyu, Tang Huan slowly turned his head and looked at Hu Kai, who was behind him. "Big brother Hu, Tiger, can you still hold on?" "Don't worry, brother Chen Huan." Hu Kai patted his chest and laughed. He was extremely excited. "All right, big brother Hu, Tiger, you rest at the back first. Leave this group of feathered beasts to me." Tang Huan nodded his head. When both of his eyes looked forward again, they immediately changed, as though he was holding on to a spear. It was congealed in his hand. It was extremely sharp, as though it was able to pierce through a person's body. There was indeed a huge difference between Eagle Clan cultivators and Eaglemen. The Eaglemen of the small world had the appearance of an eagle, and this Eagle Clan was the same as the Tiger Clan. They looked completely human. Amongst the group of Eagle Clansmen in front of him, there were a total of 9 peak Heavenly Domain S and 6 True Spirit Cultivator S. Among them, Yingyu had the highest cultivation, so he should be at the peak rank for True Spirit Realm. But, although Yingyu's cultivation was strong, Tang Huan was not afraid at all. "How dare you!" Hearing that, Yingyu was immediately enraged. The dozens of people at the side were shocked awake and fumed with rage at Tang Huan's words. They cursed out loud one after another. The people from Eagle Clan hated this the most. A mere rank 2 true spirit dares to be so arrogant. Yingyu stared coldly at Tang Huan, her long and narrow eyes brimming with killing intent. "Chen Huan, do you know that disaster comes from the mouth? You think you can fight against me just because you forced me to retreat a few steps? Forget it. I will let you know now, compared to me, who is in the peak rank for true spirit realm. You talk too much nonsense." Without waiting for Ying Yu to finish speaking, Tang Huan let out a cold snort. The conqueror's spear in his hand had already turned into a streak of fiery red light and shot out like lightning. In the eyes of the heavenly domain cultivator S, this was merely a simple spear strike. But in the eyes of Ying Yu, he consecutively thrusted 49 times in an extremely short amount of time. The power within the 49 spear shot out layer upon layer, condensing into a massive spear light that broke through the air. Conqueror breaching army spear technique, divine power beating. Compared to when he was in the Chen village back then, Tang Huan's spear art had improved by another huge amount. Previously, when Tang Huan unleashed this battle skill, every thrust would cause a spear image to appear. But now, every thrust of the spear had created 49 spear images in the blink of an eye, and all of the spear images had congealed into one. Although the change was minute, it caused the power of this divine power beating move to increase explosively. Chapter 758, Playthings. Not a bad battle skill. Unfortunately, it's still far from enough to deal with me. Ying Yu's pupils shrank abruptly, and he immediately let out a cold snort. In the space between mind instructs, in a second, the body of the White Hawk, Peng Shao, suddenly sank down. In an instant, the originally huge body of the White Eagle expanded by quite a bit. It was now over a dozen meters long. Screech! With a cry that seemed to pierce through one's eardrums, the giant eagle suddenly pounced forward and pecked at the spear light with its iron hook-like beak. Bam! The spear light immediately exploded. The giant eagle flapped its wings. The berserk and raging strength chi rolled towards Tang Huan. Tang Huan acted as if he did not see it, and rushed straight towards the incoming heat wave. The conqueror's spear in his hand swept out with a lightning speed, and the majestic strength chi surged like a torrent. The conqueror breaching army spear technique could sweep away an entire army. The power of this spear was unparalleled. With a single sweep, it actually enveloped everything within a 10-meter radius, including the giant eagle. Ho! The giant eagle turned its body, and its left wing slashed down at the spear like a white giant blade. The fierce strength chi poured down, and before it could even touch the spear body, it had already cut a 20 to 30 meter long crack on the ground, causing countless dust and dirt to fly into the air. Clang! After a moment, the long spear and the giant hawk's left wing collided ferociously, and a burst of clanging metal clanging sounds came out. The exceptionally powerful strength chi swept out in all directions, and wherever it went, sand and trees were turned over, grass and trees were turned upside down, the area of 10 meters around it turned dark and gloomy. At this moment, those Eagle Clan cultivators were forced to retreat. Hukai had long since retreated. The members of Team 50 who were lying on the ground had also been moved even further away by Hukai and Chen Yu, who had appeared right after him. Tang Huan's face darkened as he groaned. The moment the giant eagle wings touched the conqueror's spear, Tang Huan felt as if thousands of sharp blades were slashing down at the same time. In between the mind instructs, in a second, the Nine Yang Divine Furnace and the Innate Realm True Spirit circulated rapidly, resolving the distance that was following the long spear's attack. However, Tang Huan was still pushed back more than 10 meters with his spear before he managed to stabilize his footsteps once again. Damn it! At almost the same time, the giant hawk also retreated several meters, and half of its wing had actually been shattered by Tang Huan's long spear. However, in less than a breath of time, that pair of wings condensed and formed yet again. The gigantic white hawk roared out, and with a flap of its wings, it pounced towards Tang Huan once again. Seeing that, Tang Huan's eyes turned serious. When they were rescuing Hukai, although Tang Huan had forced him to retreat, it was a sudden attack on his part and Ying Yu had been caught off guard. It did not mean that Ying Yu was weaker than him. And now, Ying Yu had displayed his most powerful strength. Tang Huan did not hold back, clashing head-on. Ying Yu was indeed stronger than before. However, what Tang Huan possessed was not only methods to fight against his enemies. "Come at me!" Tang Huan bellowed, swung his spear, stepped on it, and shot forward. Slash! Amidst the sound of ripping silk, One of the giant eagle's sharp claws tore through the air and swiped towards Tang Huan's spear, while the other claw directly grabbed towards Tang Huan's head at an extremely fast speed. In the blink of an eye, the two claws had already touched their target, but the spear and Tang Huan had immediately disappeared. This is bad. The white eagle flapped its wings crazily without any hesitation. Pang Shao's body rose up, and at the same time, a fire-red spear radiance shot out from behind him and flashed under the giant eagle's stomach. Although it did not hit the giant eagle, the strength chi that came at the giant eagle still tore a long gash on its stomach. Bam! Immediately after, the spear light descended onto the slope 20 meters away, and the strength chi exploded, blasting out a huge pit and filling the sky with sand. Screech! The giant eagle cried out in anger. Afterwards, its wings were slightly drawn, and like a meteorite falling from the sky, it pounced towards Tang Huan at an extremely terrifying speed. Its two sharp claws instantly shrouded an extremely vast area, and even if a mountain peak was standing below, it would still be able to explode from the claws of the white eagle. Swish! After a split second, Tang Huan's figure melted away once again. What was left behind after the giant hawk's claw was only an afterimage in the air, but Tang Huan's real body had actually disappeared once again. With its previous experience, the eagle reacted faster this time. It did not hesitate to rush upwards. However, this time, it did not cause him any harm. Even so, the giant hawk was even more furious. His body turned, and his huge wings cut down like Tang Huan. What was destroyed was still only an afterimage. This scene was repeated time and time again, causing the giant eagle to be extremely angry. However, this was just the beginning. In the following time, the giant hawk pounced over and over again, either tearing claws, pecking mouth, or slicing wings, moving even faster than a shooting star. However, it did not touch Tang Huan's real body even once, but had instead been nearly pierced by the conqueror's spear in Tang Huan's hands multiple times. All the attacks missed. This feeling was as if he had struck cotton with all his might. Once or twice he could still endure it, 8 or 10 times he could barely endure it, but it was the same dozens of times in succession, causing the giant eagle to go mad, its angry cries rising and falling one after another. Just where did this guy come from? To the point where even Big Brother Yingyu can't do anything to him. Another phantom. Big Brother Yingyu, be careful, he's behind you from the left. The dozens of Eagle Clan cultivators were dumbstruck. Hukai was also speechless. After the initial shock, he was secretly pleasantly surprised. Originally, he was worried that Tang Huan would not be able to hold on much longer, but he never expected that this would actually be the result. Tang Huan's strength was indeed not as good as Yingyu's, but the teleportation that he displayed was godly and unpredictable. To actually use his cultivation of rank 2 true spirit to play around with Yingyu. Swish! After shattering Tang Huan's illusion for the 32nd time, the giant hawk once again flew up into the sky at a rapid pace. It seemed as if it had gone insane as it roared at the top of its lungs with extreme rage. Go, capture those two fellows. Stretching out his wings, he was actually pointing at Chen Yu and Hukai, who were watching the battle from several tens of meters away. The dozen or so Eagle Clan cultivators on the ground seemed to have awoken from a dream. But before they even had the chance to act, a loud roar rang out. If you want to touch them, you have to ask me whether I agree or not. Chapter 759, Assault. From the forest on the right, Li Tanan took the lead and galloped over. Although his cultivation was higher than Tang Huan, but in terms of speed, even when using his full strength, he was still inferior to Tang Huan, and thus arrived later than Tang Huan. Seeing his figure, Hukai and Chen Yu were pleasantly surprised. Tens of meters in the air, the giant eagle was stunned. Judging from the aura, the person's cultivation was clearly higher than his. The Eagle Clan cultivators below who were prepared to take action were all shocked. Other than Yingyu, the highest cultivation among their group was only at rank 3 true spirit. Brother Li, you came at the right time. Not far from the giant hawk, Tang Huan's figure suddenly appeared, and laughed out loud. I'll leave this side to you. Leave the beast with the flat fur to me, I'll tease it a little more." With that, Tang Hua turned and like a shadow, he flew towards the forest in the distance. "Brother Chen Huan." Li Tanan was shocked. Just as he was about to call out to Tang Huan, his figure had already disappeared into the forest. "How hateful!" The giant white hawk screamed and chased after them without any hesitation. Its wings flapped crazily. Wherever it went, sandstorms and rocks flew and rolled in the wind. Li Tanan did not see the battle previously. When he saw Tang Huan lead the giant hawk away, he started to worry. Initially, he had planned to replace Tang Huan with himself to deal with the giant hawk, while Tang Huan looked at the other eagle clansmen. But now, Tang Huan had lured away the giant hawk first. He could not rush over to support them. If not, Hu Qi, Chen Yu and the rest would fall into the hands of the other party. "Be careful." In a moment, Li Tanan could only shout in the direction that Tang Huan had disappeared to, and then looked at the dozens of eagle clansmen. Two pairs of eyes were condensed into a solid, sharp blade, and at the same time, a huge pressure erupted from his body. Close to 100 meters away, dozens of eagle clan cultivators seemed to have sensed something, and they immediately retreated, escaping from the range of the pressure, and then stared at Li Tanan and the rest from afar, not daring to get closer. Although they had a lot of people and 5 true spirit cultivators, Li Tanan was too strong. If there were 2 or 3 true spirit cultivators fighting desperately against Li Tanan, the others would indeed be able to easily catch Hu Kai and the others. Of course, this was a lose-lose situation, and it hadn't reached that stage yet. As the two sides faced each other, 2 figures could be seen in the northern forest. One of them was in the air while the other was on the ground. Whoosh! Tang Huan suddenly entered a small forest that was abnormally lush. Where is he? High up in the sky, the giant eagle's body suddenly stopped above the dense forest. After Tang Huan entered the area below him, he actually did not rush forward again. Not only that, but its aura had also disappeared without a trace. "Do you want to hide there and ambush us?" Childish. Sneering, the eagle gazed down at the dense forest with a vicious glint in its eyes. After an instant, there seemed to be countless feathers that had broken away from their wings and shot out, densely packed and overwhelming. In an instant, the dense forest was completely enveloped within. It was as if thousands of sharp blades were hacking down at the same time. With an earth-shaking ringing sound, the dense forest within a radius of 20 to 30 meters turned into dust in an instant. Countless dust and sand flew everywhere, and the ground had already become riddled with holes and ravines. However, upon seeing this scene, not only did the eagle not feel any sense of accomplishment, it also felt somewhat bewildered. At the same time the attack was launched, it was also closely watching the movements below. However, not only was Tang Huan not retaliating, his figure also did not appear in the surroundings, and not even a single trace of abnormal aura fluctuations could be seen. After Tang Huan entered the dense forest, he seemed to have disappeared into thin air. How is this possible? When it was only a few meters away from the ground, the surface of the giant hawk's body started to ripple. In the next moment, Yang Yu's figure appeared, floating lightly on the ground, while the giant eagle's body in the sky started to shrink greatly. 2 hawk-like eyes swept across his surroundings, but Yang Yu did not let his guard down. Tang Huan's godly teleportation was hard to guard against. Yang Yu didn't think that the hateful fellow had already been smashed into dregs by that strike just now. He must have definitely left the place with some sort of crafty method before even made his move. After carefully observing for a moment, he still did not discover anything. Tang Huan did not suddenly appear, nor did he conduct a sneak attack. "That guy lured me here just to make me disappear all of a sudden?" Yang Yu frowned, his thoughts running fast. "This is bad." After a short moment, Yang Yu was shocked. He suddenly thought of a possibility. If Tang Huan lured him away, and then quietly returned, the other rank 5 true spirit was strong, but he was only one person, and it was hard for him to pose a threat to the eagle clansman that was still there. Yang Yu's expression suddenly changed, and his entire body was covered in cold sweat. But just when Yang Yu wanted to return, a great sense of danger suddenly welled up from the depths of his soul. In that instant, he felt all 36,000 fine hairs on his body suddenly explode, the biting cold from his spine to the top of his head, causing his soul to tremble. This bastard still hasn't left. Yingyu was terrified. A terrifying aura of sharpness suddenly appeared behind him, as though it was going to pierce a hole through his body. The source of this sharpness was definitely the long spear in that fellow's hand. If it was just Tang Huan's spear thrusting over, it would not be enough to shock Yingyu. After all, before this, situations like this had happened quite a few times. However, the situation this time was very different. The sudden burst of sharpness he felt was not even half a foot away from his back. This meant that the spear point was also less than half a foot away from his body. With such a small distance, let alone retaliating, he couldn't even dodge. Slash. The sound of clothes ripping came from behind him, causing a sharp pain to come out immediately. It was the skin on his back being torn apart, causing Yingyu to smell the scent of death. A flash of determination appeared in Yingyu's eyes, and a group of blood-red odors suddenly shot out from his stomach. Screech. Just at that moment, the giant hawk in the sky suddenly let out a mournful cry and rushed into the sky. At the same time, the group of blood-red odor also entered his body. In less than the time of half a blink, the giant hawk's body was completely covered by a dense bloody light, and the speed at which it was flying had increased by countless times. Bam! An explosive sound was heard from the ground. Yingyu's body instantly turned into a rain of blood, but before he could even land in the capital, he had been completely evaporated. 2 to 3 meters away, Tang Huan's figure had already appeared. The bright red spear in his hand maintained its forward trajectory, with his two eyes looking towards the horizon. The giant blood-red hawk had already disappeared without a trace. The moment the true spirit escaped and stayed in the great image, and in the instant it was sent out, it used blood spirit escaped skill. This method of escaping is rather miraculous. Tang Huan murmured to himself, feeling somewhat regretful. What a pity. This is the first time that he's using the yin and yang void method, heavenly invisibility, to ambush someone, and he's still not skilled enough. If we were to do it again, he wouldn't be so lucky. Chapter 760, Spear. In the Mekong Cave area, Li Tanin and the dozen or so Eagle Clan cultivators continued to clash with each other. Both sides had their own misgivings and did not dare to make the first move. Behind Li Tanin, Luo Xingkong, Tong Jin, the other peak stage heavenly domain cultivators had all rushed over. The unconscious cultivators, after taking the medicine to recover from their injuries, had all woken up. This also caused Luo Xingkong and the others to be filled with anger when looking at the other side. However, the dozen or so Eagle Clan cultivators did not care at all about the angry gazes. It was true that they did not dare to make the first move, but it was not certain that they would be able to make a move later on. That guy called Chen Huan could indeed rely on his strange teleportation methods to show off his strength for a while, but if time passed, he would definitely not be a match for Yingyu. Once Yingyu defeated or killed that guy, the group of Tiger Clan would have nowhere to run. Li Tanin naturally knew what the Eagle Clan cultivators were planning, and his brain was already working hard, trying to figure out a way to make Hu Kai, Chen Yu and the other injured members retreat first. However, if they were to retreat just like that, the Eagle Clan cultivators would definitely take action to stop them. Haha, Big Brother Yingyu is back. Suddenly, a loud laughter came from afar. The group of Eagle Clan cultivators all looked towards the north. All of them were excited. Yingyu is back, but what about Chen Huan? Did he encounter an accident? Li Tanin, Hu Kai and the rest were all shocked. Their expressions immediately changed as they looked towards the north. In the distant horizon, there was indeed a figure with wings on his back flying at lightning speed, so fast that it actually reflected a string of afterimages. But in the next moment, the faces of the group of Eagle Clan cultivators froze, and their laughter suddenly stopped. Haha. Brother Chen Huan. Brother Chen Huan is back. After being stunned for a moment, Hu Kai immediately became ecstatic and started laughing maniacally. It really is Brother Chen Huan. Li Tanin also laughed, his eyes shining brightly. I knew it. Brother Chen Huan wouldn't have met with any mishaps. Look at those guys on the other side. I'm going to die from laughter. Do they still think that only feathered animals like them can fly? Chen Yu, Luo Xingkong, Tongjin, more than 10 other cultivators at the peak of heavenly domain were overjoyed, their spirits uplifted. How could it be this bastard called Chen Huan? Where's big brother Ying Yu? Why hasn't he come yet? Could it be that he can actually fly? How is that possible? The group of Eagle Clan cultivators could not believe their eyes at all. After that moment, an uproar broke out among the crowd, and questions emerged uncontrollably from the bottom of their hearts. The two of them left together, and now that only one had returned, the other had an obvious ending. Ying Yu, who was a peak rank 4 True Spirit cultivator, was killed by a rank 2 True Spirit cultivator. Even if he wasn't killed, he would have been defeated. Otherwise, Ying Yu would not allow his opponent to return alone. The figure rapidly approached. In just a few moments, his face was already clearly visible. It was Tang Huan, who had previously lured Ying Yu away by himself. After arriving above the canyon, he did not land on the ground, and instead instantly flew to the top of the group of Eagle Clan cultivators under the watch of many gazes. Before the dozen or so Eagle Clan cultivators could regain their senses, Tang Huan had already dived down, the conqueror's spear in his hand smashed down, and a powerful strength chi mixed with blazing heat roared out from the spear's body. In an instant, it condensed into a substance, and like a fiery waterfall, crazily poured down from the skies. The Eagle Clan cultivators of the rank 3 True Spirit took the lead and suddenly opened his eyes wide. He roared out wildly and a rich black chi surged from his body rapidly. In the blink of an eye, a black eagle that was a few meters long took shape. Screech. Immediately after, the black hawk screamed, his 2 wings raised high, with the force of a thunderbolt-like force. He slammed forward. After that, he fiercely crashed into the fire-red long spear that was surrounded by the shock wave. A burst of extremely fierce undulations spread out from the point of contact. In an instant, the sound of the collision shook the heaven and earth, and the strength chi frantically spread out. High up in the sky, the giant black hawk paused for a moment and then began to explosively retreat. Not even a breath's time had passed before both his wings completely collapsed. PFFT. The Eagle Clan cultivators also suffered a heavy blow and staggered a few steps back. Blood spurted out of his mouth and his face revealed an unconcealable look of shock. Everyone, run. As soon as he finished speaking, he rose into the air and merged into the giant Black Hawk's body. The wings on which the Black Hawk had disappeared once again emerged at the same time. With a flap of its wings, the giant Black Hawk fled into the distance. With a single spear strike, an expert of the rank 3 True Spirit actually managed to escape with serious injuries. The other Eagle Clan cultivators were also extremely shocked when they saw this. One by one, they also turned into giant eagles and quickly fled in different directions. They actually wished that they could grow a pair of wings and escape as far away as possible. The corner of Tang Huan's mouth slightly rose, but he did not give chase. If Ying Yu was completely killed, none of these fellows would be able to escape in case the news got out. But now that Ying Yu had already escaped, killing them would be useless. Instead, it would very likely cause a fierce conflict between the two great clans of Tiger Clan. In Firing Dragon Mountain Range, conflicts between the younger generation often happened. However, both sides will limit the conflict to a certain extent, trying to avoid the death of each other. So far, Ying Yu and the rest had only severely injured the Tiger Clan and not killed them the moment they arrived. Of course, this was also the reason why Ying Yu wanted to lure all of the members of Squad 50 over and capture them in one net. If not for Tang Huan, they might really succeed. There was no evidence. Even if he knew that it was Eagle Clan who did it, there was nothing Tiger Clan could do. Of course, secretly using the same method to exact vengeance was unavoidable. Both of his wings withdrew and Tang Huan's figure swiftly floated to the ground. In a few flashes, he had already appeared beside Li Tanan and the others. Brother Chen Huan, where's that Ying Yu? Li Tanan asked somewhat impatiently. He escaped, but, There's only one true spirit left. Tang Huan laughed, and said somewhat regretfully, it's a pity that we didn't kill him, and that he didn't die, so these fellows could only let them escape. Li Danan, Hu Kai and the rest all took in a breath of cold air, and Luo Xingkong, Tong Jin the rest nearly had their eyes popped out of their heads. After Tang Huan appeared, they thought that Tang Huan had only lured him to a place far away before stealthily returning to, but they never expected that the real situation would actually be like this. Under Tang Huan's hands, Ying Yu of the peak rank 4 true spirit had actually fallen to the stage of using his true spirit to escape,